Warrior Lore. Chapter 395, A Moment of Gasping for Breath. Chapter 395, A Moment of Gasping for Breath. The beasts outside the ancient city rushed into the lake's area. The warriors who were still outside the lake saw the beasts coming and knew that the situation now was critical. They didn't wait any longer and dashed towards the teams of warriors in the lake to launch their final attacks. Instantly, all kinds of secret treasures went rampant over the lake. Dazzling lights interweaved and formed a network of various violent bursting tyrannical energy fluctuations. Yin was sitting in the lake with the gravitational field in front of his people, making other warriors scared. No one was daring enough to pick Yin's group as their target. Aya, Kai, Laoli, and Lao Luan relied on Yin's power so that they could have some more time to breathe and take out their demon crystals to use the power inside to restore their profound qi. Qi Xiao, Zhuasu, and Zhuashur were somehow having the same feeling of embarrassment. However, thanks to Yin, the three of them now also had demon crystals in their hands to restore their strength and didn't need to worry about becoming the target of any other warriors in front of them. Seeing Yin's group settled in the lake, the three most powerful teams in the center of the lake had no reaction. They gradually loosened their vigilance and then sat down again. These three most powerful teams in the center of the lake had third sky of Sky Realm warriors who were sitting in front to protect them. Therefore, other warriors could only surround the lake from the outside and didn't dare to mess with them. They just tried to deal with the other five teams. Sitting in the lake, Yin frowned and observed with a cold face. He watched the other warriors fighting and killing each other while he quietly controlled the gravitational field. The gravitational field was originally huge, but then silently separated into another smaller gravitational field. This small gravitational field slowly collected all the dead warriors from the battle. More than 10 dead warriors were pulled into the small gravitational field. The abundant aura from those bodies massively overflowed and poured into Yin's acupuncture points. While others were desperately fighting, he took the opportunity to collect the dead warriors' bodies to enhance his own strength. So many people were fighting aggressively, and new warriors were killed every second. In the meantime, Yin could leisurely sit in the lake and not need to waste any of his strength, yet could still obtain a huge harvest. This trip to dark magnetic noxious mist was indeed the right choice. Yin coldly sneered inside his heart as he felt the influx of heaven and earth aura that suppressed his state of mind. He then began to notice the pain in his acupunctures and somehow couldn't bear so many auras. He thus retrieved the gravitational field. It was not that he didn't want to continue collecting more auras, but he knew his own situation and that he shouldn't be too greedy. This place was abnormally dangerous, and if he fell into the possessed by the devil state because of his greed, the consequences would not be worth it. Giving up on collecting more auras of the dead bodies, he still vigilantly looked around only to see a bunch of warriors tragically dying and more beasts rushing over. Finally, hundreds of beasts stormed in like locusts. These beasts were like tigers stalking their prey, immediately starting to kill those warriors who were gathered outside the lake. At this moment, the fight outside the lake became brutal. The warriors not only had to face the other warriors in the lake, but they also had to cope with the influx of the beasts. More and more warriors outside the lake were attacked. Many of them were bitten and torn apart. Even their bones were swallowed. Warrior lore. Although this small lake had a special effect in resisting the beasts, the warriors in the lake were still a little bit worried that the defensive power of this lake would suddenly disappear. With so many beasts gathering outside it, once the lake's defense was turned off, those warriors who were meditating would be bitten and swallowed in a short time. No one dared to take risks, and thus, they all looked like they were encountering a pandemic. The brutal fight with a significant number of warriors and beasts finally ended after around 10 minutes. The Heavenly Palace's warriors also had the same result as Ningzhe. They couldn't enter the lake at the end and were then replaced by other teams. They were all bitten and crushed into pieces, swallowed into the beasts' bellies. Soon, there was no one alive outside of the lake, leaving behind only pieces of bodies and almost 1,000 different types of beasts. Those beasts opened their bloody mouths, emitting a stingy, bloody smell from their sharp fangs. Their eyes coldly looked at the warriors in the lake, but didn't dare to rush at them. They just surrounded the lake without leaving. It seems that this small, silver lake is indeed the only way to survive. Aya frowned and softly let out a sigh. Poor warriors who couldn't come in here. All of them have suffered a tragic death. This dark, magnetic, noxious mist is really cruel. If we want to get the secret treasures, we have to exchange them for our lives. Kai and Laoli nodded simultaneously and displayed fearful faces. Yin, we have disturbed you this time. Without your gray tornado, we wouldn't have been able to take this position from the hands of the Heavenly Palace's people. Laoli sincerely expressed his gratefulness and said, in that stone fortress, without you, we two brothers would have already. Laoli and Lao Luan clearly understood that if it weren't for Yan's orders, the two girls, Aya and Kai, definitely wouldn't have brought them here. If they just relied on their feet, they wouldn't have made it to this small, silver lake. On the way, the two brothers gradually considered him as their true leader and began to admire as well as respect him. After this battle, the two of them honestly recognized him, unlike Aya and Kai who had unkind thoughts. I knew what to do so that all of us could make it here. Yin revealed a faint smile. You and I have also experienced many things, and thus, I have considered you guys as my friends. I cannot betray my friends. While speaking, Yin glanced at Aya and Kai. The eyes of the two brothers flashed up, and they secretly nodded. Aya's and Kai's faces looked unhappy. They both grunted. Don't be so happy. This is just those beasts' first attack. Storms, flames, wind, frost, and lightning are still here. This small lake can prevent the beasts, but it doesn't mean that it can block those disasters that come from the four mountains as well. Yin contemplated a little bit while his face didn't relax. We should all be careful. When those disasters get here, we should be well prepared. First thing is defense, so that these disasters cannot destroy us. Aya and the others now looked tense again. Yin, how did you suddenly reach the third sky of Nirvana realm? Zwashur quietly stood up and laughed while gently walking to his side. I clearly remember that when we were in Deep Cloud's place, you were only in the disaster realm. Now, you are already in the third sky of Nirvana realm after only 7 or 8 years. Your cultivation is really fast. Qi Xiao and Zhuasu both looked at him. What? Kai's graceful face slightly changed. Her eyes brightened up and looked at Yin sharply. You have reached Nirvana realm from disaster realm in only 7 to 8 years. The faces of Aya and the two brothers also lost their color. They looked at him like they were watching a monster. Yin knitted his eyebrows and indifferently said, I was just lucky. Yin, why did you come here? Didn't you go to the Endless Sea to see the Yang family? Zhuasu was stunned for a moment and suddenly remembered something. That's right. Your great-grandfather told us that if we met you, we should encourage you to cultivate harder and not to let the Yang family's people look down on you. How was it in the Yang family? How did they treat you? Did you encounter anything unpleasant? The Yang family, Yin muttered a sentence, shook his head, and revealed a wry smile. I don't want to talk about this now, as it's impossible to tell you everything in just a short time. How is my great-grandfather? He is good. Currently, Arzwa family and Shur family are dominating the merchant union. The Baiming family, Mo family, and Ling family have almost been destroyed. The warriors of these three great families have cleared out. Their strengths have significantly decreased in the merchant union. Thus, all the new warriors have joined either the Zhua family or the Shur family. Zhuasu smiled. Thanks to you, the two families could become the dominators in the merchant union. You didn't encounter any difficulties? Yin asked casually. The smile on Zhuasu's face stiffened while his eyes showed a trace of sadness. He said, We didn't encounter big troubles. However, the Fire Empire and the God-blessed Empire gave us a lot of pressure. The fight between these two countries was spreading and affecting the merchant union. They wanted to borrow our forces and didn't want us to be neutral. Evidently, they most likely won't let us live in peace. In Deep Cloud's place, there were the Fire Empire, the God-blessed Empire, and the Merchant Union. Among them, the Merchant Union was considered the weakest. After Baiming family, Mo family and Ling family were wiped out, The number of Merchant Union warriors was not enough. Thus, they were not able to face the intimidation from these two empires and let them harbor wicked intentions. Listening to what Swasu had said, Shi Yin raised his eyebrows, nodded calmly, and said, "When we have time, I will find a way to help you deal with the threat of the Fire Empire and the God-blessed Empire. However, this has to wait until after we leave this dark, magnetic, noxious mist. The Endless Sea also has many troubles." Listening to Shi Yan's words, Swasu and the other people displayed a curious look. However, since Shi Yin didn't say anything further, they didn't pry for more information. "You guys shouldn't keep talking about old stories. Trouble is coming again." Aya suddenly spoke up, interfering with their conversation. She pointed to the intensive lightning area ahead and said, "The lightning over there will come here first. We should think about how to deal with the incoming lightning." A bunch of lightning was meandering and twisting in the air like electric snakes. In the dazzling electric lights, the lightning was coming closer and closer. Whatever the lightning passed through, stone fortresses below all exploded, and stone rubble splashed everywhere. "Look at the sky." A third Sky Realm warrior in the center of the lake suddenly screamed out in surprise. Shi Yin subconsciously raised his head up to look at the sky. In the area where the two rivers interweaved, ancient corpses piled up, vaguely forming a bridge which extended to the small lake and gradually descended into the lake. Violent fluctuations came in from those dazzling lights. Many colorful beams of lights, which looked as if there were fishes inside, were twisting and meandering. With a closer look, people realized that the lights were actually swords, armors, jade hairpins, jade stones, all kinds of secret treasures. "Those are the secret treasures." The warriors in the lake screamed boisterously with excitement. All of them were ready to grab the secret treasures. In the center of the lake, 6 of the third Sky Realm warriors stood up one by one, raised their heads up as they threw a quick look at the movement above, and then immediately stared at Shi Yan's group with cold eyes. They obviously didn't have good intentions. Chapter 396, Mountain and River Seal. Chapter 396, Mountain and River Seal. "Be careful." Qi Zhao's face slightly changed. He subconsciously gathered his strength, as his 5 fingers contracted and a flow of hazy smoke gently flew out from his fingernails like a spiritual snake. Aya and Kai tensed up. From a distance, they were observing the storm, lightning, flames, and frost gradually approaching. They were also watching out for the other teams of warriors in the small lake, as they were afraid that they would take any explosive action to obtain the secret treasures. The energy fluctuations at the point where the two galaxies interweaved above everyone's heads were getting more and more violent. It seemed like countless different energy traits at that weaving point had begun to have some unusual changes. The floating ancient corpses were affected by the energy from that center weaving point and started to sink slowly. These corpses formed a ladder which started from the sky and gradually fell closer to everyone's heads. The ladder that these ancient corpses have formed should have reached that energy weaving point. Wait until that ladder descends. Then, these 3 teams of warriors will compete for the opportunity to go up. Aya took out a dark purple stone, on which a mysterious pattern looking like a network of mountains and rivers was engraved. The breadth of the intent domain had fully covered those crisscrossing rivers. The stone seal in her white hand vaguely scattered purple lights. The pattern engraved on the stone was very lively. In those purple lights, mountains and rivers looked like they were being revived as they slowly started moving on the stone. Aya immersed her mind in the stone. Her whole body suddenly brought out a thorough intent domain. She poured her profound chi from her body into the stone to form a connection and then gently said, "This mountain and river seal is a sacred level secret treasure. When the disasters come closer and the other 3 teams of warrior take action, I will immediately release this mountain and river seal. It can certainly hinder them for some time, while we take the opportunity to climb onto that corpse bridge and go to the sky." As soon as Kai, Lao Li, and Lao Luan saw her take out the mountain and river seal, their eyes all lit up. It seemed that they also knew the use of this mountain and river seal, as their faces were clearly startled. Yin glanced at Aya and secretly nodded as he knew that this girl, at this moment, seemed to understand the great picture and finally used her hidden means. Aya came from the White Emperor City and was said to be the daughter of the Castellan of the White Emperor City. From Kai Yi and Lao Li, he knew that the Castellan of the White Emperor City had an extremely profound cultivation base. Aya was his daughter, so the fact that she had strong secret treasures didn't surprise Yin at all. During this journey, since he had started to lead this team, Aya had become more relaxed than before. She had deliberately hidden her real power in many fights, as well as used many secret treasures to deal with enemies. The fact that she decided to use the mountain and river seal this time meant its power was strong. Everyone must be careful. If Aya releases the mountain and river seal, as long as you spot the opportunity, do not hesitate. Yin looked at Qi Xiao, Zhuo and Zhuo Su. The three people of Aya's group also came from the White Emperor City, so they knew the magical effect of this mountain and river seal. However, Qi Xiao's group didn't. Yin was worried that they didn't know the situation well enough to grasp the opportunity later. Therefore, he had to tell them in advance. Qi Xiao's group slightly nodded with solemn faces, indicating that they clearly understood what he said. Little stick to your master and do not stray away from him at any cost. Zhuo Su lowered his voice and told Zhuo seriously, if you are separated from your master, you have to rely on Yin. You are the weakest, so no need to try your hardest. Your most important task is to keep your own life. Qi Xiao had a cultivation base of second sky of Sky Realm, and was considered the strongest one among them. Zhuo Su and Qi Xiao had known each other for many years, and he also knew Qi Xiao's ability. He was confident that Qi Xiao would be able to protect Zhuo at the critical moment. As for Yin, although it seemed that he was only in the Nirvana realm at first glance, when he brought out his strength, Zhuo Su couldn't help but secretly praise him. Zhuo Su was in the Nirvana realm as well, and he knew that he could hardly protect anyone else at a critical point in time. He couldn't entrust Zhuo's safety to Aya, Kai Yi, or any of the others. That was why he had spoken these words. Don't worry, Grandpa. I will take good care of myself. Zhuo gently replied while her brightened eyes blinked. She continued to worry a little. Grandpa, you also have to be careful. The secret treasures are obviously precious, but you shouldn't risk your life. Although your cultivation is the top in the deep clouds place, your strength here is. Zhuo Su revealed a wry smile, nodded, and didn't say anything. Actually, there was no excuse. The situation in this dark magnetic noxious mist was totally different than that of the deep clouds place. All of the warriors here had at least Nirvana realm cultivation base, and most of them were very young and outstanding. After coming here, Zhuo Su was somehow a little bit sad, and for the first time, he was aware of the fact that living in the deep clouds place was actually pitiable. He had a feeling like a frog sitting on the bottom of the well. Moreover, he had secretly made up his mind that once he got out of the dark magnetic noxious mist alive, he would certainly reconsider the future of the Zhuo family. He would open his eyes wider and no longer limit himself to a small place like the deep clouds place. While the people of Zhuo Su's and Aya's group were talking, the corpse bridge was getting closer to everyone's heads, only about a few dozen meters away. At this moment, the three teams in the center of the lake couldn't control themselves anymore. Their eyes flashed with fierce lights, and they started to launch their attacks toward the opponent next to them. First, the three teams had only focused their powers on other teams who had third sky of Sky Realm warriors, because they considered them as their main threats. However, when they subconsciously looked at the disasters which were slowly coming their way, they began to pay attention to Yin's group as well. The faces of Yin, Qi Xiao, Aya, and the others became cold. Everyone tensed up. The distance between them and those disasters was getting closer. Yin's group would probably be the ones who got hit first by the flames and storm. In case they had to resist the disasters and other warriors attacked at the same time, their situation would be extremely dangerous. Remember, pay attention to my actions, Aya said in a voice which only the people next to her could hear to inform her team. She was holding the mountain and river seal, which had turned to a strange dark purple hue. The blood vessels in her hand had a thin strand of purple light, which flowed slowly into the mountain and river seal. Wearing. The sound of the storm was like the growl of a ferocious ghost, which came slowly and suddenly resonated. The first disaster to arrive was the storm. In the violent wind, the energy was like a surging tide that came along with the storm and quickly spread out over the lake. In the storm, strange lights flashed up like dazzling swords. That light carried a gleam of sharp cold with it. Seeing the invasion of the storm, the faces of the people on the 6 teams next to the lake darkened. They all hauled out their secret treasures and released their own defensive halos. Those warriors no longer hid their secret defensive treasures as they put on their colorful armors that had special effects. Swisher also put on her dragon turtle armor. This strange armor, which was made of a turtle shell, covered more than half of her tall body. Except for her 2 long legs, her entire body was covered. Her look was ridiculous, as the armor was as motionless and heavy as a mountain. Yin was somehow surprised. He stared at her for a moment, nodded and said, "It looks like in these years you have had a deeper understanding of this dragon turtle armor." That's good. Although it doesn't look very nice, its defense should be helpful." Swisher's face reddened. She embarrassedly said, "Don't say anything more. I know this armor is ugly. I don't need you to remind me." Yin was dumbfounded, and then immediately turned his head, looking at the area above the gravitational field which was ahead of him. He began paying attention to the impact of that storm on the gravitational field. The storm massively covered the sky as rain poured down. It violently poured a kind of strange, twisting power into the gravitational field. When a part of the gravitational field came in contact with the storm, different mixed forces suddenly became unbearably chaotic. They seemed to be affected by the storm, which made the rotation speed decrease and even gradually slow down. Feeling cold in his heart, Yin immediately realized that this moving storm could destroy the gravitational field. His face slightly changed. He didn't hesitate too much, taking the opportunity when the storm wasn't completely in the gravitational field yet, to swing up his 2 hands in the air. Bursts of energy fluctuations discharged from his hands. The golden silks that mixed with the gravitational field were affected by the strange power from his 2 hands, turning into golden lights and disappearing into the storage ring on his finger. Within 3 short seconds, all the golden silks had been collected into the storage ring again. After the disappearance of the golden silks, the gravitational field, which he had built and had been working well, was finally filled with the power of the storm. In a blink of an eye, different kinds of energies that had condensed in the gravitational field were all stirred up by the storm's movement. The gravitational field then disappeared without a trace. Ha ha ha. In the center of the lake, a third sky realm warrior coldly looked at Yin for a short while before pouting his lips and saying, "One threat less." The fact that some of the strongest warriors in the lake had guarded against Yin's group was because of the gravitational field. The strange power of the gravitational field and the existence of the golden silks had terrified those warriors and made them consider him as their greatest threat. Now that the gravitational field had disappeared and Yin was only in the Nirvana realm, in their eyes, his group was not strong enough to affect them. Their faces loosened as they no longer felt threatened by his group. At this moment, the purple lights of the mountain and river seal in Aya's hand suddenly rose to her head. Streams of purple lights scattered from the mountain and river seal like small springs overflowing and spreading out, quickly filling the space above everyone's heads like a network. "Don't be hasty." Yin's face suddenly changed. He couldn't help but shout. The purple lights of the mountain and river seal were like a small spring extending outward above the crowd's heads and overwhelming the space above the lake in a very short time. Aya took advantage of the mountain and river seal's change and screamed, "Everyone, get ready." Other warriors in the lake coldly looked at Aya, grunted, and focused their attention on her. Chapter 397, Viciousness. Chapter 397, Viciousness. "Little girl, since you are asking for death, I will fulfill it for you." In the center of the lake, the scarred face of a third sky realm warrior darkened as he suddenly launched a blow. A huge palm which was formed by the condensation of profound chi emerged in the sky, covering Aya. The center of the palm transmitted a strong suction force. Standing together with him was another third sky ream warrior, who revealed a trace of disdain on his face. He slowly walked over with his left hand outstretched from his sleeve. With the speed which was as fast as lightning, he began releasing streams of light which condensed into a huge crystal python, dashing toward Shi Yan's group in an attempt to tear them apart. The corpse bridge in the sky finally fell to a climbable height. The faces of people of Shi Yan's group changed suddenly. They anxiously told Aya to pay attention to this warrior. Seeing the warrior coming and forming a crystal python, Shi Yan and Kai Yi didn't dare to hesitate and immediately started to take defense. Shi Yan, take good care of my little Shi for me. Qi Xiao suddenly shouted out loud, and a gray ball flew out from his cuff. The thick fog inside of it also quickly spread out, then instantly gathered, forming a mist of gray smoke that blocked the incoming crystal python. Kai Yi's face was cold. She also discharged the round rings on her arm. A bunch of rings spanned in the air with dazzling lights, shooting sharp blades towards that crystal python. Zhou Su, Lao Li, and Lao Luan were motionless while wearing solemn faces. They didn't dare to relax. The crystal python twisted its body and shook its head satisfactorily. It was around 10 meters long. The serpentine pattern on its body was very obvious. When this python flew over, it instantly spurted out a bunch of lights. Crystal light was like an all-conquering sword which pierced and destroyed the fog barrier that Qi Xiao had put out and hit the rings that Kai Yi had discharged. The edge of the rings had many blades. When those rings hit the crystal light, their tracks were all changed, and they burst out in every direction. Kai Yi's face was pale as she was affected by the strike. Her entire body trembled as she moved back 3 steps. Her eyes suddenly darkened. At the same time, the other 2 teams of warriors in the lake also fought with each other and started to snatch the opportunity to climb onto the corpse bridge. Aya released the mountain and river seal. Purple lights were constantly blinking on and off between her eyebrows. That bunch of purple lights and the mountain and river seal connected, making this seal turn into a purple stream that extended broadly and covered the entire lake in just a short time. A heavy momentum from that purple stream oppressed those under it down. All of the warriors in the lake were agitated and affected under this strong pressure, which brought them the feeling that it was impossible to destroy it. Shi Yan was no exception. That purple stream also had a big influence on the sea of consciousness. The mentality fluctuations from the mountain and river seal came out and spread through the purple stream, affecting all warriors in the lake. All of the warriors in the lake were under the influence of the mountain and river seal, making their sea of consciousnesses affected as well. Within a second of being distracted, their eyes looked dazed. Aya suddenly flew away. She was as fast as lightning. While people were still in a daze, she was the first one who was able to come close to the stone ladder. Before others could react, she had already gotten on the stone ladder and quickly climbed onto the corpse bridge toward the weaving point. The 5 devils in Shi Yan's sea of consciousness suddenly woke up. On the edge of life and death, Shi Yan instantly restored his consciousness and saw Aya, who was now the first one climbing on the corpse bridge towards the weaving point in the sky. Damn it! Shi Yan couldn't help but curse. Aya had set them up. She didn't intend to go with other people in Shi Yan's group to the stone ladder. She had released the mountain and river seal that had attracted other teams to let Qi Xiao and Kai Yi take action. She made use of Qi Xiao and Kai Yi to give herself more time to release the power of the mountain and river seal. When the great hand seal of the warrior with the scarred face was released, it was instantly affected by the mountain and river seal and thus couldn't discharge all of its power. At the moment, when everyone's eyes looked dazed, Aya had spotted the opportunity and released the greatest strength of the mountain and river seal, affecting everyone's sea of consciousness. She then took advantage of this moment to be the first one to climb the stone ladder. Aya clearly didn't consider the other people of Shi Yan's group her friends. In the past few days, she probably stayed with Shi Yan's group just to wait for this moment. She made use of Shi Yan to attract the attention of other warriors and thus borrowed them to deal with Shi Yan's group. She then took the opportunity to rush to the corpse bridge. And she did it. Aya quickly climbed the stone ladder. Below the mountain and river seal, a purple stream was formed and instantly condensed into a heavy defense barrier. Under the sky, the mountain and river seal formed a purple river which became a new barrier that contained a large number of purple lights. When she rushed to the corpse bridge, the purple lights gathered with the ancient corpses at the bottom of the bridge. She didn't want anyone else to catch up with her. Such a malicious girl. The third sky realm warrior with the scarred face secretly cursed her. When the great hand seal grabbed an ancient corpse which was nearest to everyone, it was smacked away, and thus the great hand seal couldn't snatch the ancient corpse nor crush the purple lights of the mountain and river seal. I didn't expect that you could think of such a way. Young generations like you guys are really cunning. The warrior who had condensed the crystal python looked at Shi Yin, Qi Xiao, and Kai Yi with his cold eyes. That girl has already gone first. You guys are better off being buried with her. You should think a bit before deciding to take things for yourselves. In the small lake, some warriors were trying to destroy the purple stream barrier that the mountain and river seal had condensed. The others looked at Shi Yan's group with an unfriendly attitude. That cheap girl? UWH*Re, B*TCH, Kai Yi, Lao Li, and Lao Luan gritted their teeth and cursed while their faces looked extremely odd. Aya had taken advantage of them without caring about their lives. She had spotted the opportunity and rushed to the corpse bridge, making them the target of other warriors. That was extremely vicious. The surrounding area couldn't destroy the purple stream that the mountain and river seal had created, and thus their rage was growing while their eyes shot out dazzling lights. The light seemed to resent that it couldn't devour and swallow them alive. The three people of Kai Yi's group and the others brought up Aya's ancestors and cursed all of them. Qi Zhao's and Zhuasu's faces changed dramatically. They subconsciously moved backward next to Zhuashi while their eyes looked very serious. A miserable scream suddenly came up. A Nirvana realm warrior at the edge of the lake, who was cruelly looking at Shi Yan's group, was inadvertently blown away by the storm. In the storm, the warrior's body was broken into pieces while his internal organs were all torn apart. His death was extremely miserable. Scourge had arrived. Everyone's faces changed dramatically. Those warriors who were at the edges of the lake increased the power of their defensive light to their peak. They moved towards the center of the lake to gather while continuing to concentrate their strength at the same time. The scene suddenly became chaotic. The warriors in this lake gritted their teeth and cursed, constantly striking the barrier that had been created by the mountain and river seal. Under the continuous impact of different kinds of secret treasures, that purple river seemed to be no longer able to resist as a crack started to gradually appear. Those secret treasures with extraordinary power continuously flew out from the third sky realm warriors. Splendid lights in those secret treasures shot out towards the purple stream and drilled into the first ancient corpse, striking away the purple lights which were hovering around that corpse. If it continued like this, the barrier that the mountain and river seal had created would soon be destroyed. Under the abundant power of those secret treasures, even if it were the sacred level mountain and river seal, its spiritual aura would be drained and would become a piece of wasted rock. Aya had risked one of her sacred level secret treasure to block everyone else, so that the upcoming disasters would engulf and kill them all. If her plan worked, then she could get the secret treasures, which vaguely appeared in the sky, for herself. She gave up the mountain and river seal, but she was still able to get more secret treasures. This had calculated everything very well. The mountain and river seal had Aya's intent domain and power. Her father is a second sky spirit realm warrior. Hence, it's not that easy to destroy the mountain and river seal. Kai Yi gritted her teeth resentfully. This bitch is vicious indeed. If I knew it, I would have killed her earlier. The faces of Lao Li and Lao Lu darkened. We have also been deceived. At this time, Shi Yin suddenly looked at other warriors in the center of the lake, frowned, and explained, as you have seen it, that girl has fooled us. Right now, everyone should not continue disputing anymore, but we should find a way to destroy this mountain and river seal. Shi Yin could see that these warriors were in a rage and had murderous intentions in their minds. If these warriors started to act crazy, even if he could protect himself, Qi Xiao, Zhuoshi, and others wouldn't be able to escape. Therefore, in order to avoid the case where those warriors decided to start a frenzy, he had to speak out. I will not fight against you for now. Wait until I am out of danger, then I will settle this with you. The warrior with the scarred face shouted with a cold face, and then put his strength on bombarding the mountain and river seal. Prepare to cope with the incoming disasters. Shi Yin softly let out a sigh, nodded toward Qi Xiao and Kai Yi, and reluctantly used the star shield. Countless spots of starlight burst out and covered his entire body. What? Star shield? In the small lake, a middle-aged man with a dry, yellow face and a rugged beard looked at Shi Yin in surprise while his eyes flashed up with strange lights. He screamed out loud, "Little kid, you also belong to our god's sect?" Shi Yin was stunned. In a short moment, he didn't know what to say and just casually uttered, "What?" Chapter 398, The Northern Dipper Arrows. Chapter 398, The Northern Dipper Arrows. Little kid, you are one of the god's sect's people? The middle-aged warrior, whose face was dry and yellow, looked at Shi Yin, shouted out loud while seeming to be excited. Shi Yin was startled for a while. As he was deep in the thought about how to defend against these disasters, he didn't understand what that man meant. So he casually asked, "What? Are you one of the divine radiant cult's people, little rascal?" That big man grunted. His attitude was much better than before. Before, when he had looked at Shi Yin, he had resented that he couldn't kill him. However, right now, although he still cursed him little rascal, he didn't seem to have any wicked intentions. Shi Yin suddenly understood. I come from the Endless Sea, and I have the Star Martial Spirit. The Three Gods sect in the Endless Sea is one branch of the Gods sect. So that's right. Without waiting for Shi Yin to finish his sentence, the man hurriedly screamed, "Come here. We need your star power. As long as you condense the Northern Dipper arrows and then integrate with my great sun power and moon power of Liu, we will be able to break the mountain and river seals barrier." Beside him, a female warrior at the third sky of Sky Realm also nodded her head. This warrior named Liu, of the Divine Radiant Cult, looked ordinary. Her body was extremely skinny. Her face was a little pale as if she hadn't been exposed to the sun for a very long time. At the moment when she saw Shi Yin cast out the star shield, she was also a little startled. After realizing it was the star shield, she considered Shi Yin as her own family and also showed a better attitude on her face. Before seeing Shi Yin display the star shield, she had looked at Shi Yin with extreme, cold eyes. A person of the Divine Radiant Cult, Kai Yi muttered with a low voice. Shi Yin was stunned. He thought for a while before he gently nodded. Walking over to Zhuoshi, he held her hand and took her to the center of the lake. Zhuoshi's eyes looked panicked. Her face was puzzled while Shi Yin was pulling her to the center of the lake. After a quick glance, Qi Xiao and Zhuoshi looked very cheerful as they seemed to see through Shi Yin's mind. Zhuoshi was only in the disaster realm. She had the lowest cultivation base here. If she stayed at the edge of the lake, she might not be able to withstand those disasters. Although the magnetic field around the Silver Lake slowed down the disasters a lot, according to what was going on right now, the disasters would soon come over. Shi Yin took Zhuoshi to the center of the lake so that she could be the last to face those disasters. Perhaps by that time, the barrier that AI had created might have been broken already. Thus, she could have a chance to climb to the sky, avoiding those disasters. Who is this girl? The warrior with a yellow face frowned and asked when he saw Shi Yin bringing Zhuoshi over. My wife. Shi Yin revealed a faint smile, kept his normal face, and secretly held Zhuoshi's hand tightly. Zhuoshi originally had some resistance and secretly blamed Shi Yin. However, when she glanced at Qi Xiao and Zhuoshi and saw them let out a sigh of relief, she understood what was going on. Shi Yin wanted to protect her. Zhuoshi was moved a little bit and stopped struggling. Instead, she became well-behaved and obediently followed Shi Yin. After hearing Shi Yin say that Zhuoshi was his wife, Those warriors from the divine radiant cult didn't say anything else. 5 of them even took the initiative to move to the side, leaving Shi Yin and Zhuoshi a small space. Do you know how to perform the northern dipper arrows? Liu asked. No, I don't. Shi Yin shook his head. How about using the star power to create star formation? Do you know them? Liu asked again. Star formation? Shi Yin's eyes brightened up. He nodded. I know how to perform it. Very good. Release it quick. Zhao Feng and I will take care of the rest. Hurry up. The warrior with a yellow face named Zhao Feng also hastily urged Shi Yin. In the center of the lake, the 2 strongest teams seemed to know the secret technique of the divine radiant cult. After hearing the northern dipper arrows and the star formation, their eyes all brightened up, and no one scolded Shi Yin anymore. They looked at Shi Yin with shining eyes. Under other people's scrutinizing looks, Shi Yin triggered his mind to activate the star martial spirit, gathering a bunch of starlight dots. 7 groups of lights were formed above his head, and then displayed themselves according to the formation of the 7 stars of the northern dipper. Is this right? Shi Yin asked with uncertainty. That's it. Zhao Feng displayed a cheerful face and burst into laughter. A surge of scorching flame energy flowed out from his body in the radiant lights. A beam of scorching sunlight flew out and drilled into the 7-star formation. At the same time, moonlight also spread out from Liu's body. This beam of light, which was like the shining moonlight, also flew out from her hands, infiltrating the 7 stars formation. Don't worry, we will take care of the rest. Liu told him in a carefree fashion. Shi Yin nodded. A group of sunlight, moonlight, and 7 groups of stars gathered in the 7 stars formation. Suddenly, a strong energy fluctuation stirred up, spreading out from the sunlight and the stars. This fluctuation in the 7 groups of stars that Shi Yin had released abruptly resonated. Under everyone's attentive looks, odd changes suddenly appeared on the 7 groups of stars that Shi Yin had released, turning them into a set of a bow and arrows. The sunlight from Zhao Feng and the moonlight of Liu merged to form a powerful arrow. That light arrow rode on the bow, which had been created from the condensation of the starlight. The bow was elongated. A violent energy fluctuation suddenly flowed out from the bow. The starlight instantly integrated with the light arrow. This light arrow, which brought along the starlight, terrifyingly shot out towards the ancient corpses at the bottom. Boom! When the light arrow hit a corpse at the bottom, the purple lights which were wrapped around the ancient corpse broke instantly. The mountain and river seal suspended above everyone's head, and its power seemed to have been struck and scattered. The mountain and river seal darkened and couldn't maintain its purple river to keep overflowing. All kinds of secret treasures flew out and collided with that mountain and river seal. The mountain and river seal slightly shook in the air as its spiritual aura got empty, and it finally fell. We're good. Zhao Feng laughed out loud and shouted. We broke the barrier, so we must go first. Liu's face became cold. She looked at the warriors next to her and said, You should understand the rule. Go up. Zhao Feng stared at a divine radiant cult's warrior next to him as he shouted to urge him. Under Zhao Feng's gaze, this warrior suddenly woke up and hurriedly rushed towards the stone ladder. Shi Yin was startled and then quickly gave Zhuoshi a push. She staggeringly walked towards the corpse bridge and strenuously climbed while being shoved by the divine radiant cult's disciples. When Zhao Feng and Liu saw what Shi Yin did, they just slightly knitted their eyebrows but didn't say anything. In their hearts, since Shi Yin belonged to the divine radiant cult, he was like family. As his wife had a low cultivation base and moreover, staying in the lake was the most dangerous thing right now, they didn't oppose to what he did. Shi Yin, when Zhuoshi climbed halfway onto the corpse bridge, she suddenly remembered something and couldn't help but shout while looking at Zhuoshi and Qi Xiao in the distance. The disaster currently submerged Qi Xiao and the other people. Their entire bodies were now shining with dazzling lights as they were desperately struggling with miserable faces. Zhuoshi couldn't just abandon her master and her grandfather. Don't worry too much. You go up first, then we will talk later, Shi Yin shouted. The divine radiant cult behind Zhuoshi also frowned and urged her. She then reluctantly continued to climb toward the top. Not long after that, all of the divine radiant cult warriors had climbed up. Zhao Feng and Liu simultaneously looked at Shi Yin and shouted together, "Hurry up, little kid, don't waste others' time." What? Others are waiting for you." Zhao Feng stared at him. If it were somebody else, he would go right away. "You have the chance now. Why are you hesitating?" The warriors of the other two teams had come close to the center of the lake. From a distance, Qi Xiao and the others were now submerged in the disasters. Cold sweat beaded on their foreheads as they seemed to resist strenuously. If he went up now, perhaps Qi Xiao and Zhuosu would stay here forever. "I can wait for a while longer." Shi Yin sneered and moved backward. He looked at Zhao Feng and Liu and said, "You guys go first. I will catch up later." Zhao Feng and Liu were astonished and immediately scolded Shi Yin for not being wise. While muttering, the two of them stepped forward and then climbed on the stone ladder. "You too," Shi Yin shouted. "What else do you want?" "How troublesome," Zhao Feng angrily asked. "Please take care of my wife. We all come from the God's sect. I will remember this favor," Shi Yin begged. Zhuosu had gone up, but he didn't know what was waiting for them up there. He couldn't be together with Zhuosu and was afraid that she would encounter some danger up there, so he could only beg Zhao Feng and Liu to help him take care of her. Zhao Feng coldly snorted and displayed an unhappy face. "Stinky little rascal, you are nonsense. If you don't come up here soon, you deserve to die because of your stupidity. There aren't many secret treasures, and if you are late, nothing will be left for you." While talking, Zhao Feng suddenly accelerated and gradually disappeared into the clouds. In the center of the lake, the other two powerful teams took advantage of this time and also went up to the corpse bridge, moving up along the bridge. Shi Yin suddenly turned his head and released the star shield. His entire body reddened. He then drilled into the center of the disasters. Lightning, flames, storms, and frost all swept over, covering the entire lake. These four strange forces which came from the four mountains seemed to have a terrifying destructive power that could break a variety of defense halos. The star shield produced crisp sounds under the effect of these four kinds of disasters, as if it could explode at any time. Under these four kinds of disasters, it was like Shi Yin was stuck in a deep pond of mud, walking staggeringly. At this time, he knew what Qi Xiao and the others were facing. "Hey!" A crazy roar came up as different strange powers burst out from his body. Shi Yin was now like a mighty tiger rushing towards Zhuosu and pulling him by one of his hands. Chapter 399, Lending a Helping Hand. Chapter 399, Lending a Helping Hand. Among everyone, Zhuosu only had the third sky of Nirvana realm, and he had just reached this realm. He couldn't even be compared to Lao Li and Lao Luan. He was thus the weakest one. Under the invasion of the four kinds of disasters, Zhuosu had to resist the hardest. His tattered clothes flashed up with blue lights. Under the impact of the four disasters, he seemed to have signs of being broken. With his cultivation base, it was hard for Zhuosu to survive in these disasters. Shi Yin rushed forward as one of his hands pulled Zhuosu's hand, shouted, and forcefully threw him out. A flow of strange power burst out. Shi Yin seemed to get infinite power at this moment. Although Zhuosu was shrouded by four kinds of disasters, Shi Yin could still throw him out towards the center of the lake. At the center of the lake, warriors of other teams were getting on the corpse bridge. As soon as Zhuosu landed at the center, he immediately followed these warriors to climb on the corpse bridge to the top without thinking too much. Qi Xiao had the second sky of Sky Realm cultivation base. Under the influence of the disasters, he still had a spare strength and was slowly moving towards the corpse bridge. After a quick glance, Shi Yin could see that even without external forces, he would still be safe. Shi Yin then made up his mind that it was not necessary to help Qi Xiao. While his body power skyrocketed, he walked step by step to the two brothers, Lao Li and Lao Luan. Seeing Shi Yin coming, the two brothers were overjoyed while their eyes instantly brightened up. Although the two brothers were also the warriors of the divine radiant cult, their realm was still slightly low, and they didn't have too many secret treasures. So, they were encountering difficulties when facing the disasters. When Shi Yin came, The two of them thanked him, looking grateful. At this time, the two brothers realized that Shi Yin was much better than Aiya. The fact that he didn't abandon his team members really made their hearts moved. "Go!" Shi Yin shouted. His two hands shook, and vast energy fluctuations instantly burst out from his arm. Each of Shi Yan's hands carried one of them. He immediately entered the second sky of Rampage, and now felt that his entire body somehow had the power that could be compared to that of a mighty third sky of Sky Realm Warrior. Shi Yin then forcefully swung his arms, and the two brothers, who were well prepared, flew away towards the center of the lake. By that time, Qi Xiao had also arrived in the center of the lake, and he was easily able to catch the two brothers and take them to the bridge. The two brothers didn't hesitate at all. Among the crowd, they hurriedly took the opportunity to climb on the corpse bridge. An anguished scream resounded from a warrior who was still at the edge of the lake. He was shrouded deeply in the disasters, but no one could rescue him. The defensive halo and his secret treasures couldn't withstand the damage caused by the four disasters. Once his power of defense disappeared, these four disasters would strike him to death, burn him to ashes, or the lightning would destroy his soul. He also could be shredded by the storm or be frozen by frost. Just like that, around 10 people had suffered tragic deaths because they couldn't get to the center of the lake to climb onto the corpse bridge. Shi Yin turned, gave a quick look, and realized that as long as warriors were in the range of 5 meters below the corpse bridge, they would not be affected by the four disasters. Qi Xiao was already there. The intensified smoke that was hovering around his body had also dissipated. He no longer needed to waste his power to resist the surrounding disasters. Slightly letting out a sigh of relief, Shi Yin strenuously moved to Kai Yi. At this moment, Kai Yi's clothes were all wet, and her appearance looked quite awkward. Sweat appeared on her white face. Her eyes were full of panic, while she put out all of her strength in her body to deal with the four disasters. More than 10 ribbons were fluttering in Kai Yi's cuffs. Each of them flashed up with colorful lights and vaguely covered her entire body. Under the influence of these four disasters, she launched these ribbons, and they exploded one by one. Every time a ribbon exploded, Kai Yi's face changed a little bit, showing an expression of panic. Each of those ribbons was Kai Yi's surviving defensive energy circle. Once these ribbons were all destroyed, Kai Yi would be exposed and then immediately bitten and swallowed by the four disasters without any bones remaining. Shi Yin coldly looked at her. A trace of hesitation flashed across his eyes. Kai Yi and Aiya were both difficult to control. Aiya had succeeded in her tricks, which made him more vigilant. He subconsciously considered Kai Yi the same as Aiya. He didn't know what would happen if he saved Kai Yi. Would this girl consider him as a target in her calculations in the future, just like Aiya? When they were at the bottom of the lake, he had seen Kai Yi's entire naked body and even violated her. Thus, he believed that Kai Yi hated him to the core. With this hatred at heart, Kai Yi definitely would not be obedient in the future. Perhaps she would be like Aiya, always thinking about dealing with him. With this thought, Shi Yin somehow didn't want to save her and thought of just letting her fend for herself. Shi Yin, Kai Yi suddenly screamed out loud with panic. You said that before we get out of the dark magnetic noxious mist, we are still companions. Do you remember your words? If you do, help me. Kai Yi aggressively looked at him. Her graceful face was filled with anxiety. Shi Yin hummed, then finally continued to use his hidden power, walking step by step towards her. I obviously remember. I am not like that bitch Aiya. If I say something, I will do it. Standing next to Kai Yi, he stretched out his hand, grabbing her thin waist, and used the starlight to cover her body to help her resist the four disasters. Being grabbed at her waist, Kai Yi looked restrained. Her body slightly trembled. She bowed her head, gently took a deep breath, and said with a low voice, You have helped me this time. I will remember this. The last time when we were in the lake, and you violated me, I will consider it as if nothing ever happened. Shi Yin was surprised. The refreshing fragrance of Kai Yi's body struck his nose. His arm wrapped around her waist, feeling the amazing vibration. His heart shook as he suddenly remembered the fluttering scene in that lake, and couldn't suppress the capricious feelings inside. Go quickly. Kai saw him dumbstruck all of a sudden, but didn't know what he was thinking. Hence, she hastily shouted. Yin woke up, nodded, and said with a grin, "No worries. This lake has a huge impact on these disasters. It has significantly weakened the power of the flames and lightning. Otherwise, not many people could have resisted them so long. Now that I have decided to save you, you will be safe and sound." After talking, he wrapped his arms around her waist and suddenly shouted. Various kinds of energies then burst out. A horrifying mountain-like momentum broke out from his body. Under the impact of different types of forces, Yan's strength became intimidating. Even the power of those little starlight spots covering his body also seemed to be enhanced. An intensive cluster of those starlight spots faintly formed a wonderful star diagram. The tremendous powers of flames, storms, lightning, and frost massively approached and fell on that star diagram. But as soon as they fell on it, they triggered the star diagram, which instantly shot out many beams of starlight. Starlight and the four disasters collided with each other, splashing countless more energy spots. Under the defensive star shield, Yin was safe and sound. Making use of his sturdy body, he dragged Kai step by step towards the corpse bridge. At this time, Qi Xiao had already reached the corpse bridge and was climbing to the top. Seeing Yin coming, Qi Xiao displayed a cheerful face, nodded towards him and said, "Good boy." Yin revealed a smile and brought Kai to the safe area. His momentum suddenly soared, and violent energy fluctuations burst out from his body. When other warriors who were pushing and shoving saw Yin coming, they could feel the powerful fluctuations rising from his body. Their eyes changed, and they immediately backed down obediently. "Let's go," Yin hummed as he calmly went through these warriors. Let Kai get on the corpse bridge first, and then followed her steps, stepping on the first corpse of the bridge. Under Yan's protection, Kai quickly climbed to the top. Her long legs moved up and down, dazzling Yin, who was below her. He couldn't prevent himself from having a strong lust. Not good. Yin felt cold at heart as he was immediately aware that this negative emotion had begun to spread slowly. Previously, he had collected warriors' dead bodies and had absorbed a lot of auras from those warriors who had just died. The auras this time were much richer than before, and they kept pouring into his body and only stopped when he could barely bear it anymore. 720 acupuncture points in his body began to take in the negative emotions, which then slowly outflowed and affected his mind, enlarging his inner evil side and his original instinct. This time, his acupuncture points absorbed the auras, which were more vigorous than before. Thus, the negative emotions were also much more violent than in the past. In the battle that was still raging, once all of the negative emotions burst out, he would probably go out of control. If he fell into the possessed by the devil state, perhaps he wouldn't be able to differentiate enemies and friends and would end up killing all the creatures that he saw. Destructive lust was the most wicked side of humanity and the source of demons. This time, when that lust burst out, he was afraid that his tough mind wouldn't be able to control it. He didn't know what would happen in the next second. Maybe even Zhuasu and Zhuashur would be destroyed as well. The only way to stop this violent madness seemed to be releasing that desire to alleviate its impact. However, in the present situation, how could he have enough time to release it? Who could give him that amount of time? Yan's eyes were burning up and stuck on Kai's mesmerizing sweaty body. When he looked at her butt and beautiful legs, the lust inside him was getting stronger. On one hand, it was the ruthless desire to kill. On the other hand, he had to find a girl to give vent to. These two options placed him in a dilemma. Either option didn't seem to be suitable in the current situation. If he was really in the possessed by the devil state and he released his infinite evil power, he was afraid that the final consequence would go beyond his control. He didn't want to be out of control. Struggling within his heart, he tried to control himself without looking at Kai, who was above him, or having thoughts about anything which could provoke the lust in his mind. Gritting his teeth and displaying a ferocious face, Yin followed Kai and quickly moved to the area where the two rivers interweaved. Chapter 400. Out of Control. Chapter 400. out of control. Choices. There was always a choice, but these two options were not what Shurian wanted. No matter what choice he made, neither seemed suitable for this occasion. The best choice would be that he would not be affected by these negative emotions. However, Shurian clearly knew that every time the negative emotions burst out, one of his evil sides would be amplified infinitely. Even with his perseverance, it was difficult to resist the demon state and maintain his consciousness. The torrential negative power overflowed uncontrollably from the acupuncture points in his body. This negative power was absorbed into his body, penetrating his veins, bones, blood, and affecting his sea of consciousness, seeming to control his state of mind. With this choice, he gradually lost himself as he began to breathe heavily. His eyes slowly became red, showing a strong sense of violent madness. Boom! When he stomped his foot, a violent force poured into the ancient corpse under it. The ancient corpses that had been stepped on exploded one by one under his feet, and then turned into blocks of flesh with blood dripping down on the lake below. Boom, boom, boom. Every time he stamped his feet, the ancient corpses that were being trampled on shattered into pieces and fell. The corpse bridge below his upper body began to break. The ancient corpse bodies began to tear in half. They didn't seem to have any other strength to support the bridge as they suddenly started falling. The remaining warriors who were stepping on those ancient corpses screamed miserably and fell together with those corpses. Shurian stomped his feet on the warriors who were below him, and all of them fell into the small lake. Their bone-chilling screams came up with horror. Kai and the other people, who were still on the corpse bridge, bowed their heads to look down and then all displayed looks of terror. Shurian had completely cut off the path of the warriors behind him. The warriors that fell into the lake were instantly shrouded by the four disasters. They all threw a trace of despair on their faces and hatred in their eyes for Shurian. Unfortunately, Shurian was out of control and didn't look down. His eyes were burning red while he turned his face, ignoring the screams of those warriors, and continued to move up along the corpse bridge. The painful screams were quickly silenced. The remaining warriors all had low cultivation bases. It had been difficult for them to come close to the corpse bridge as the four disasters had drained almost all of their strength. As they fell into the lake again, their strength apparently couldn't resist the disasters. They were completely engulfed by the disasters. Not long after, the warriors were killed. The four disaster quickly invaded them, and thus, not even blood was left of them. Shurian unconsciously didn't know what was going on below as he was still breathing heavily and kept climbing to the top of the corpse bridge while his two eyes were bloodshot. At the weaving points of the two galaxies, ancient corpses were floating up and down. Mysterious ancient formations were engraved on their chests. The center of each formation seemed to have a secret treasure as a power source. These ancient corpses with secret treasures on their chests were crazily attacking the warriors. The people of Zhaofeng's and Li Wei's groups were competing for the secret treasures on those ancient corpses. Other warriors were also launching their attacks to snatch the secret treasures. Once a corpse was killed, the secret treasure on its chest would separate from its body. At that time, all warriors would desperately fight with each other for that secret treasure. Zwusher stood aside as she didn't dare to get involved in this fight. She just watched those warriors attack and kill each other for the secret treasures in amazement. After getting up to the top and having a quick glance at this cruel battle, Zwisu then stood together with Zwusher and told her not to take any actions nor attract any attention from others. Zwusher understood and was obedient. She just watched but didn't get involved. She determinedly kept herself safe. The place where she was standing was actually very secure. The warriors all came up here because of those secret treasures. If she didn't show the scramble for those secret treasures, other warriors would not consider her their threat nor pay attention to her. After having climbed up here, Qishao and the two brothers Laoli also stepped to the side where Zwusher was standing. However, different from Zwusher, the two brothers Laoli revealed a trace of desire on their faces while they looked at the secret treasures on those ancient corpses. So, do you want them? Laoli waited for Qishao to come closer and asked with a cheerful face, "Should we take action?" Qishao took a deep breath. Watching this cruel battle, He slightly shook his head and said, "Wait a moment. Shurian will come up soon, and then we will discuss this." The two brothers loudly both nodded at the same time. The water here was very strange. It was next to the crowd, but no one was aware of it. People thought that it was just an illusion and had no influence on them. It was a flat layer of stones under their feet. This land emitted white lights which were constantly floating like a small boat. Most of the warriors who came up here were at the Sky Realm. There were 20 of them. Most of the Sky Realm warriors were getting involved in this battle, making the situation extremely dangerous. If any of them were careless, they would come to a desolate fate. Although Qishao had the second sky of Sky Realm cultivation base, in this area, it was not something special. There were 6 third sky of Sky Realm warriors, 10 second sky of Sky Realm warriors, and most of the remaining ones were at the first sky of Sky Realm. Except for the two brothers Laoli, there were another 2 third sky of Nirvana Realm warriors. Zwusher was the only one at the Disaster Realm. Kai also got up there quickly. After having a quick look at the current situation, she then quietly walked over to Qishao and the others and said with a solemn face and a low voice, "I think there is something wrong with Shurian." "What?" Qishao, Laoli, Zwusher, and the others asked at the same time. "What do you mean?" "I am not sure." Kai shook her head while her face was very weird. "I feel that he fears of being possessed by the devil." "Possessed by the devil?" Everyone's face changed. "He has very strong energy waves, but he seems to have lost his mind. He was full of violent, murderous aura, as if he wanted to destroy everything. I don't know how or why he is in this state. When I was above him, I could feel that he wanted to kill me. The feeling was extremely terrible." After hearing these words, Qishao and the others were all horrified as they looked at the direction of the corpse bridge altogether. A very strong, evil aura burst out there first. That evil aura had the thick smell of blood, as if it was soaked in the sea of blood, which gave people a feeling of extreme danger. In that strong, evil aura, Shurian with his red eyes gradually appeared. Looking at his eyes for a while, Qishao, Zwusher, Kai, and the others were all agitated. It seemed like their sea of consciousness was affected, bringing out a violent, destructive lust as well. A trace of violence, craziness, and bloodthirst came out from Shurian's dark red pupils. At this moment, Shurian was not normal indeed. He was like a ferocious ghost drilled out from hell that resented that he couldn't tear all creatures apart. Now, he looked even much more terrifying than the strongest beasts they had encountered in the dark magnetic noxious mist before. "Not good." Qishao's face changed dramatically. He screamed in fear. "I fear that Shurian has really fallen in the possessed by the devil state. I don't know what this kind of state will cause. Let's go there and check." Zwusher was in a little bit of a panic and subconsciously wanted to go next to Shurian to ask him what had happened. "Little Shur, don't go." Qishao hastily grabbed her and said, "When Shurian is in this state, he doesn't have his consciousness. If you come close to him, perhaps you will become his first target. Don't go." "But if he keeps being like this, it will be hazardous." Zwusher struggled a little bit and knew that she couldn't get out of Qishao's shackle. She couldn't help but shout, "Shurian, what happened to you? How can we help you?" Kai and Zwisu also looked at Shurian, waiting for him to answer. "Howl." Shurian suddenly let out a horrifying roar which was not like a human. A flow of endless evil aura along with this roar spread throughout the battle area. All the warriors' sea of consciousness shook violently. The two brothers Laoli's bodies were strongly agitated. Zwushu's body was the same, trembling in shock. Blood flowed out from his eyes, while his face revealed an extreme expression of fear. The other 2 Nirvana Realm warriors were the same as the 2 brothers Laoli. Blood flowed out from their eyes, and they had to sit down on the ground. Shurian let out a loud roar which was full of violent, fierce power. This evil aura kept increasing and affecting all warriors. The sea of consciousness of the Nirvana Realm warriors could hardly control their minds. Thus, that evil aura hit their sea of consciousness directly and stirred it up, and at this time, their sockets bled. On the contrary, although Zwusher's face was pale, she was still safe and sound. As her sea of consciousness hadn't formed yet, she didn't suffer the impact of Shiyan's evil aura. That was why the minds of the two brothers Laoli, who were at the Nirvana realm, were damaged, but hers wasn't. The eyes of Kai and Qishao, the two Sky Realm warriors, also changed dramatically. They hurriedly suppressed the fluctuations of their sea of consciousness, using all of their strength to prevent them from being affected by Shiyan's impact. After Shiyan's roar, the Sky Realm warriors from the Divine Land who were still fighting stopped suddenly with shock and all looked at Shiyan. "Stinky boy, what are you doing?" Zhao Feng's face darkened. He suddenly shouted out loud, "Don't scare people. You are possessed by the devil now? Do you really want to kill yourself? Kid, quickly hold your breath and meditate. Sit at one place and do not move. Put all of your strength to control your mind. Don't think too much." Li Wei's eyes flickered, looking at Shiyan from a distance. She then spoke up, "Zhao Feng, that method you just said is useless for him. This kind of possessed by the devil state is not caused by cultivation, but the will of depravity. With this kind of possessed by the devil state, it is not easy for him to restore himself just by meditation. I am afraid that this guy has cultivated some evil technique which has led to some variations that now have affected his mind. This situation is difficult to reverse." Zhao Feng screamed and blankly looked at Shiyan without knowing what he should do for now. Chapter 401. Rampage. Chapter 401. Rampage. Be careful with this guy. He has become crazy already. Don't stay too close to him. The middle-aged warrior with a scarred face snorted coldly and said impatiently, "At this time, if he really wants to die, I don't mind fulfilling his wish." While he was talking, his eyes were cold as he was observing Shiyan aggressively. He looked like he wanted to finish Shiyan once and for all. It was unknown if it was that warrior's hostility that drew Shiyan's attention or not, but he let out a loud roar and fiercely looked at everyone. His crazy, bloodthirsty eyes suddenly gazed at that middle-aged warrior. "What are you staring at? Do you want to die?" That warrior revealed a cold, disdainful smile. "What's good about bedevilment? After all, you're only at the Nirvana realm. Since you want to die, I will satisfy your wish. Tuku, this kid's a disciple of our divine radiant cult. If you touch him, I will not forgive you," shouted Zhao Feng. "He's insane. You want to cover a madman?" That middle-aged warrior with a scarred face, whose name was Tuku, revealed a cold countenance as he contemptuously ridiculed. This kind of person doesn't have a firm willpower. In this critical time, he let himself fall into bedevilment. I am afraid that even when he wakes up, he will not be of much use. You shouldn't care for him. Howl. However, at this point in time, Shiyan roared once again. He now looked like a crazy beast. His entire body poured out a white mist while rushing towards Tuku. Tuku wore a cold face as he sneered. "Want to die?" "Tuku, don't do anything rash," Zhao Feng shouted. "This guy is our divine radiant cult's disciple. Dealing with him means dealing with the divine radiant cult. If you dare to kill him, I will not forgive you." "Since when has Pure Land been scared of the divine radiant cult?" Tuku laughed strangely. Seeing Shiyan rushing over, Tuku pulled out a corpse next to him, which he had captured and tied up. The body of this ancient corpse, which had lost its secret treasure, was badly damaged and had no power remaining in it. After a blow from Tuku, a beam of blood-like light suddenly poured into the ancient corpse. The ancient corpse dashed towards Shiyan. On the way, the bloody, flesh body of the ancient corpse fell off, leaving only a skeleton. Under the repulsive force, the skeleton of the corpse abruptly burst out. Its hard, thick, long bones turned into a stream of blood, splashing on Shiyan's body. Clatter. The sound of metal collision came from Shiyan's chest. Sharp, bloody bones pierced at his body, which was like bombarding a hard stone. Light spurted out from Shiyan's chest. His clothes were torn down, but his skin remained undamaged. Tuku squinted while his face revealed a glimpse of fright. Zhao Feng, Liu, and others were also dumbstruck, looking at Shiyan with disbelief in their eyes. Tuku had the third sky of Sky Realm cultivation base. Pure Land's secret martial techniques were famous for strange and aggressive features. This method of using a warrior's bones as attacking spears was called Variant Fleshbone Spear, which was terrifyingly intimidating. Ordinary secret defensive treasures could barely resist it. Although Shi Yin faced that fierce blood spear's stabbing force with only his sturdy body, his whole body was totally unharmed. That gave the other people a bone-chilling and panicked feeling. Is this kid even a human? How come this guy's body could be even mightier than typical beasts? The crowd couldn't help but have this thought in their minds. They all looked at Shi Yin with frightened eyes. They subconsciously took one step backward, scared that Shi Yin in the bedevilment state would consider them as prey. Ha ha ha, Tuku, you couldn't do it? Zhao Feng was about to lend a hand to Shi Yin. But when he saw he was still safe, he suddenly became happy and couldn't help but burst into laughter. It looks like your Pure Land's secret techniques cannot compare to our divine radiant cults. This disciple didn't even use a secret treasure, and your variant fleshbone spear still couldn't harm him. It really makes me doubt if Pure Land has an unearned reputation. Liu also showed a contemptuous smile and said, well, despite having such high reputation, Pure Land seems to exaggerate their fame. From what I've witnessed today, it turns out to be just banal. The faces of Tuku and the other Pure Land's warriors were all pale while their eyes became gloomy. At this time, Shi Yin once again roared loudly as he crazily dashed towards Tuku. A bunch of starlight spots flashed out from his chest. It seemed that he was enhancing his defensive power. Like a beam of starlight, Shi Yin zoomed over and instantly appeared in front of Tuku. Terrible soul fluctuations flowed out from his red eyes. Just with a look at Shi Yin, Tuku's sea of consciousness was strongly stirred up. He had a feeling of being submerged in an endless sea of blood and besieged by many ancient corpses. This kid's eyes can shoot out mind attacks. Be careful. A third Sky of Sky Realm warrior suddenly shouted when he saw Tuku revealing a trace of unconsciousness. Tuku's eyes instantly restored to their normal state. He felt his blood was chilled while his sturdy body twisted like a snake. His bones then produced a loud sound which constantly reverberated inside of his body. His bones burst out like fried beans popping. When the sound echoed from inside his body, Tuku's body suddenly emitted a dark green halo. This halo was like some kind of liquid covering his entire body. This dark green light was a little devilish. Amongst the misty drizzle, there seemed to be a malicious spirit lodging in his body. Waiting for Shi Yin to rush over, this green liquid quickly opened and turned into 3 green spooky ghost claws, which then stretched out and snatched him. Dark green ghost hand. Tuku sneered coldly and opened his mouth, spitting out a bunch of lights, which divided into 3 and went into the claws separately. The 3 ghost claws, under the lights from his mouth, exposed 3 green eyes that looked like ferocious ghosts from hell, peeping into the human world and spreading out icy, green lights. A soul-devouring thought spread out and directly infiltrated Shi Yin's sea of consciousness through his red eyes. You dare! Zhao Feng roared angrily and couldn't help but finally take action. He launched a bunch of scorching sun god lights towards Tuku. In the divine light, people could vaguely see the sun nourishing all creatures. Those creatures could survive and reproduce under the sunlight. Another Pure Land warrior grunted, leaped up and instantly appeared next to Tuku. A round drum flew out from his sleeves. As soon as the drum emerged, it bulged and produced a dull thumping sound. Under the impact of that drum sound, creatures which appeared in the god light seemed to be destroyed one by one, leaving no trace. The intent domain lodged in the sun godlight was smashed down. The intimidation of the sun godlight also reduced significantly. That warrior took the opportunity to launch a blow. 5 different lights from the round drum flashed up and disappeared, instantly shooting towards the sun godlight and destroying its power. Crack crack. Tuku's 3 ghost claws had now grabbed Shi Yin's neck. The devil claws were as sharp as knives, mercilessly pressing Shi Yin's throat, releasing a creepy sound. As soon as Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and the others saw Shi Yin encountering danger, they immediately rushed over, attempting to help him confront the enemy. The two brothers also shouted. They seemed to have some kind of divine power as the gloves on their hands released a fierce, torrential intent domain, striking toward the group of the Pure Lands warriors. The three ghost claws squeezed Shi Yan's neck even more tightly. Although there was a horrifying sound, his neck wasn't torn apart and remained unscathed. The dark green ghost hand revealed the ghost eyes staring at Shi Yan's red eyes. A cold, evil god power penetrated his sea of consciousness, attempting to make him unable to control his body or form an effective defensive force. Wailing, Shi Yan roared crazily. A bunch of blood-red lights burst out from his red eyes. An intent domain of destruction, violence, and bloodshed jumped directly into the ghost eyes of the three ghost claws. Those three ghost eyes exploded one by one, and the intent domain inside the ghost eyes that came from Tuku was fragmented. Right after that, Tuku's body was also affected by that evil intent domain. His face suddenly changed as a small stream of blood light flashed up in his eyes. Shi Yan swung his arms, which now had a purple hue. Violent power spewed out and aggressively shrouded the three dark green ghost hands. Bang, bang, bang. The three dark green ghost hands condensed by Tuku all burst open, turning into many green dots of light which then dissipated into heaven and earth. How can it be? Tuku subconsciously screamed out loud. You are only at the third sky of Nirvana realm. How can you break the dark green ghost hands that I have condensed? Impossible. Tuku shouted while his face finally revealed a glimpse of fright. He hurriedly stepped backward. Shi Yan's figure wiggled a little bit. A huge purple-red fist suddenly appeared on Tuku's right side and fiercely hit him. This kind of power was like a surging tide, bringing along the intent domain of destruction, bloodthirst, and craziness that instantly poured into Tuku's body. When this horrifying energy struck his body, an explosive sound resonated from Tuku's body. His ribs even protruded out of his skin. Tuku screamed tragically. Blood kept flowing out like a river from his left hip. In his screams, Tuku looked like he was encountering devils and hurriedly dodged away in panic, not daring to face Shi Yan anymore. He was terrified. A few warriors who were surrounding and watching them wore a frightened look. Their eyes were glued on Shi Yan in fright. Although Shi Yan was only at the third sky of Nirvana realm, which was one full level lower than Tuku, he could still injure Tuku severely. What kind of situation was this? Shi Yan, you're really powerful. Lao Li burst into laughter. An arrogant divine power flowed around his body. Together with his brother Lao Luan, he was dealing with a first sky realm warrior of pure land who was now covered in blood. It seemed that this warrior didn't have even the slightest resistance left. Shi Yan fought with a warrior who was one complete level higher than him and defeated his opponent. Zwishur's eyes sparked strange lights. Seeing Shi Yan, who was in his bedevilment, display his intimidation, her heart was moved a little bit as she felt that Shi Yan somehow had an unspeakable evil charm in this state. Chapter 402. Mistaken. Chapter 402. Mistaken. 10 ancient corpses were floating in the galaxy. Each of them had an ancient formation, the center of which was inlaid with a secret treasure. After Shi Yan had attacked Tuku, the Divine Radiant Cult's members Zhaofeng and Li Yue, after hesitating a little bit, both dashed toward the Pure Land's warriors to take action. The fight between the Divine Radiant Cult and the Pure Land affected most of the other warriors. Seeing Shi Yan gazing crazily at Tuku, Qishao, Kai Yi, Lao Li, and the others were afraid that the Pure Land's warriors would join forces to kill him. Thus, they also rushed up and stared at those warriors. Pure Land had only 2/3 sky of Sky Realm warriors. Tuku was shrouded by Shi Yan's attack as he was exhaustedly struggling to deal with Shi Yan's pursuit. The other third sky of Sky Realm warrior was besieged by the unity of Zhaofeng and Li Yue and was strenuously resisting the opponent's attack. The strength of Zhaofeng and the other Divine Radiant Cult's warriors were not inferior to that of the Pure Land's warriors. Together with the power of Qishao, Kai Yi, Lao Li, and the others, the Divine Radiant Cult had gained the upper hand. At this moment, Pure Land's warriors kept screaming. Other warriors stood aside to watch them. When they saw the divine radiant cult and the pure land fighting with each other, they were a little hesitant, but tried to avoid the fight and continued to deal with the ancient corpses. If those ancient corpses were not destroyed, the secret treasures on their chests would not fall, and thus, they would not be able to obtain those secret treasures. These people had joined together to deal with ancient corpses because of those secret treasures. Unless those treasures fell out of the corpses, they would not attack each other. However, once the secret treasures fell from the corpses, these warriors would then immediately fight against each other. Every time anyone was lucky enough to get a secret treasure, that person would be extremely happy, hurriedly storing it in his storage ring, keeping guard together with his fellows to prevent someone from stealing it. The situation was unbearably chaotic. The only people that were not affected by this fierce battle were grandfather Zhuosu and his niece, Zhuoshi. When Shurian let out a roar, Zhuoshu's sea of consciousness trembled and his mind was damaged. He knew that his realm was not high enough, and thus, he would be easily defeated in the hands of those Sky Realm warriors. Hence, he didn't make a move to get those secret treasures. Moreover, he was worried for Zhuoshi's safety as well, afraid that the fight might spread to her. Thus, he decided to stay back to help protect her. In the fierce battle, once Zhuosu and Zhuoshi saw the danger coming, they would immediately create a few phantoms. Then, with the help of these illusory phantoms, they could escape from the risk at ease. They didn't seek for merit but safety. Zhuosu and Zhuoshi used all means to make sure that they were unharmed. Everyone's goal was the secret treasures on the ancient corpses. When those warriors saw Zhuosu and Zhuoshi weren't showing desire nor had any action to prevent them from taking the secret treasures, they left Zhuosu and Zhuoshi in peace, which helped the two of them become the safest ones in this place. Shurian was still in his bedevilment state as he was being covered with a violent, crazy, and bloodthirsty aura. His whole body hovered around in a thick white layer of mist in which there seemed to be substantial fluctuations. Anyone who came close to him would be instantly affected by this negative power, and that person's sea of consciousness would become a mess. Zhuosu quietly observed and realized that wherever Shurian passed, the warriors who were fighting there all tried to avoid him. For those who didn't avoid him, if the white mist hovering around Shurian's body touched their bodies, their sockets would redden, and their faces then wore a wild, bloodthirsty expression. Not only was he under the bedevilment state, but he could also pull other people into this kind of craziness. The thick white mist was filled with negative feelings enough for a regular warrior to instantly become the most ferocious beast. That warrior would lose his mind and would not even spare his companions next to him. Zhuosu was secretly aghast as he understood deeper about Shurian. He strictly warned Zhuoshi that before he restored his consciousness, she absolutely must not get close to Shurian to avoid being affected by his negative emotions. Zhuoshi grinned and didn't care. She just curiously looked at Shurian while her eyes flickered with strange and excited lights. The one most filled with regret in the field was Tuku. He was hit on his left hip by Shurian's bombardment. A violent, bloodthirsty force penetrated his body, breaking some of his ribs as well. Right now, that violent, bloodthirsty, evil force still stayed inside his body and was slaughtering freely, which prevented him from using his full strength. In this state, although Tuku still had spare power to launch his strikes, many martial techniques of the Pure Land couldn't destroy Shurian's body after hitting it hard. They couldn't stop Shurian even just a bit. Shurian's body was trembling as the coercive power of his body was like tens of thousands of galloping horses. At this moment, regardless of the defense force of his body or the burst of his body's energy, they both reached a level that he had never achieved. Under the bedevilment state, his strength seemed to become easier to urge. When various types of mysterious martial techniques engraved in his mind were cast out, not only were they not influenced by the state of bedevilment, but they also had a massive increase in effect. His normal power was already incredible, but the bursting power had become more perfect and terrifying when it was released from his hands. The second sky of Rampage, the state of bedevilment, and all kinds of power perfectly burst out. Tuku now realized that he had mistaken Shurian. Although Shurian was clearly at the third sky of Nirvana realm, His momentum suddenly skyrocketed. His frantic, evil energy torrentially flowed in his body together with different surging spirits which were enough to affect a person's mind. Whether it was a physical attack or mind invasion, Tuku couldn't bear either of them. He had used all kinds of secret techniques but couldn't harm Shurian's body. On the contrary, he was too frustrated under Shurian's attack that the situation had become more and more unfavorable to him. Zhao Feng, Tuku avoided Shurian's attack as quick as electricity and couldn't help but shout, "Is this kid really a disciple of the Divine Radiant cult? I knew that the Divine Radiant cult had a few extraordinary saplings, but I have never heard of this guy." Humph! Zhao Feng showed a trace of disdain, coldly sneered. The Divine Radiant cult's internal situation is much more profound than you can imagine. The occasional appearance of one or two outstanding young guys is normal. The Pure Land ancestors also had this kind of metamorphosis. Unfortunately, those people haven't entered the dark magnetic noxious mist yet. You have provoked the fight this time, so just consider it as the misfortune you have to bear. Zhao Feng revealed a cold sneer again and then, together with Li Yue, he rushed over to another third sky of Sky Realm warrior of the Pure Land to bombard indiscriminately. Facing the unity of these two people, this third sky of Sky Realm warrior looked extremely strained as he didn't have any way to take the initiative in the offense. He could only use some defensive methods to deal with Zhao Feng and Li Yue. In this chaotic situation, a few people who were affected by Shurian's negative emotions slowly moved toward Shurian for an unknown reason, as if they were controlled by some evil force. Moreover, they were compelled to unite with Shurian. Following Shurian's moves, they rushed toward Tuku, starting to besiege and attack him. Although these people only had the first sky of Sky Realm cultivation base, they were not afraid of death and didn't take into account their casualties. They were even willing to sacrifice their own lives to fight and kill Tuku for Shurian. A tall and mighty warrior, who had red eyes like Shurian's, crazily roared and howled, took the opportunity when Tuku dodged to move to his side, and then tightly shackled him. Bang, bang, bang. A tremendous thundering sound came up from that warrior. Numerous lightning bolts shot out from his entire body and quickly wrapped around Tuku. Tuku suddenly paled. He shouted, "Get out!" A piece of fish scale-shaped light came out from Tuku's body. That thin piece was dark blue and extremely sharp, bombarded the warrior. In a short time, the warrior's body was full of blood splashing everywhere. Even his skin and flesh were split open and cut into pieces. However, in this situation, this warrior still didn't let go of his opponent. He continued to hug Tuku tightly without the fear of death. He seemed to be ready to sacrifice his own life. Shurian took this opportunity to take action. Another warrior whose eyes were also red stayed behind that warrior. He also rushed toward Tuku and wrapped around Tuku from behind, increasing the pressure to prevent Tuku from forcefully struggling. Shurian gasped for breath while his eyes were flooded with evil lights. He didn't say a word and instantly appeared in front of Tuku. Shurian raised his arms. In this critical time, the life and death seal merged into one and quickly flew out toward Tuku. His life and death seal flashed up and disappeared, penetrating his head. Tuku's eyes became dull. His face had a painful look. It seemed that he was struggling hard, wanting to chase out the evil forces invading his head. Boom, boom. Two earth-shaking explosive sounds came up from inside of Tuku's head. His head was like a watermelon being pounded forcefully on the ground and then bursting out. A mix of brain and blood suddenly splashed out. And just like that, Tuku, the third sky of Sky Realm warrior, was killed by Shurian. Even his head had exploded. Many warriors who were still fighting for the secret treasures couldn't help but raise their heads to look when hearing the explosion. Their faces all changed as their eyes flooded with fear. Shurian, who had just killed Tuku, still had red eyes and was dashing over to the nearest warrior in an attempt to kill him, too. It was another warrior in the center of the lake, who also had the third sky of Sky Realm cultivation base. The next chosen victim had just killed an ancient corpse, took the secret treasure whose shape was like both knife and fork and put it into his storage ring. He was laughing and cheerfully shouting, "Sacred level secret treasure! Sacred level secret treasure! Ha ha ha, this trip was worth it. This trip was worth it. While laughing, his 2 eyes flickered with divine lights. He then looked around to find another target to continue to snatch the secret treasure off it. However, at this time, he looked in Shurian's direction. Shurian's eyes were still red as a bunch of blood-red lights shot out from his sockets. The blood lights were 3 meters long or so. They were like 2 flows of scarlet blood floating out from his eyes, bringing people a feeling of terror. Chapter 403, Diamond Martial Spirit. Chapter 403, Diamond Martial Spirit. Just taking a glance at Shurian immediately startled that man. His sea of consciousness violently trembled. A murderous desire rebelliously surged up in his heart, generating a crazy desire of killing all creatures. Not good. Shuddering inside, he quickly stopped smiling and started to condense his strength, ready to deal with Shurian's attack. The person who was under his bedevilment state hardly had his consciousness. As long as he considered someone a target, the external environment could barely change it. The only thing that one could do was kill the person who was in the bedevilment state, or else he would pursue and kill the other person. That warrior's mind was as bright as snow. That was why when he realized Shurian's state, he knew what he should do. Stop. Let us handle this guy first. This guy's existence can only disturb us and is a threat to everybody. That warrior turned his head and coldly harumphed, stopping the other fellows of his team from attacking the ancient corpses and asking them to divert the target. This team came from the Martial Spirit Palace in the Divine Great Land, which was one of the 7 ancient factions in the Divine Great Land. They all had a long history. This sect was the one who had dominated the Divine Great Land for tens of thousands of years. In this sect, all kinds of martial spirits were multiplied to the extreme. Almost all of their warriors had a special martial spirit. Speaking of Xiaoling, who was the leader of this team, he was a protector outside the Martial Spirit Palace and was nominated to be the elder in the future. As long as Xiaoling could enter the spirit realm and pass the Martial Spirit Palace's assessment, he would be qualified to be ordained as one of the elders of the Martial Spirit Palace. Regardless of his position in the Martial Spirit Palace or the access to wealth, it was far better than his current position as a protector. He came to the dark magnetic noxious mist to find some sacred-level secret treasures to prepare for the Martial Spirit Palace's assessment. The 7 ancient factions in the Divine Great Land didn't really get along well. They still harshly fought with each other. Xiaoling had also killed quite a lot of warriors from other forces in the dark magnetic noxious mist this time. All along the way on his journey, he nearly hadn't encountered any setbacks. Even if Shurian didn't find him, maybe because of the secret treasures Shurian's team possessed, he would find and kill Shurian's team in the end. The fact that Zhao Feng and Liu fought with Tu Ku was exactly what he wanted. Therefore, when the people of Zhao Feng's group and Qi Zhao's group united to fight against Tu Ku's team from the Pure Land, he didn't participate and just stared at the ancient corpses and killed them, taking this opportunity to harvest more secret treasures. He actually had his own calculations. He wanted to wait for Zhao Feng, Liu, and Tu Ku to fight until both sides were all severely injured, and then he would jump in and clean up the mess by defeating Zhao Feng and Tu Ku and swooping the leftover benefits. When Shurian rushed towards him, he observed around a little and realized that Tu Ku had died. The people of Zhao Feng and Liu's group had a significant advantage. This was obviously not what he wanted to see. Therefore, the fact that Shurian came to him suited his purpose. After a loud roar, other warriors from the Martial Spirit Palace understood his mind. They all coldly sneered and looked at Shurian, wanting to take the opportunity to exterminate him who was under the bedevilment state. There were 7 warriors from the Martial Spirit Palace, including Xiaoling. Among them, Xiaoling and another warrior, Xiao Hai, were both at the 3rd sky of Skyream. As for the remaining 5 warriors, 3 of them were at the 2nd sky of Skyrealm. This team was the strongest one in the small lake. These 7 people all made Shurian their target. They had absolute confidence. Not good. Zhuosher couldn't help but scream anxiously, "Grandpa, Shurian's in danger. Those 7 people are very dangerous. I am afraid that Shurian won't be able to withstand." Zhuosu's face also changed and became grave. He nodded and said, 2/3 sky of Skyrim, 3/2 sky of Skyrim, and another 2/1 sky of Skyrealm warriors. This unit is much stronger than the Divine Radiant Cults team and the Pure Lands team. Shi Yan's only on his own. He will apparently suffer a great loss. What should we do, Grandpa? Zhuoshi anxiously and helplessly said, I am only at the Earth realm. I am afraid I cannot help him. Don't think about giving him a hand. Zhuoshi shook his head and grabbed her. If you go there, you will instantly be killed. Even if I go there, I cannot change anything. Zhuoshi showed a worried face and then turned towards Zhao Feng and Li Yu, shouting, Shi Yan's in danger. While Zhao Feng and Li Yu were dealing with the remaining Nirvana Realm warriors, they heard Zhuoshi. They both turned their head to throw a quick glance over. Zhao Feng suddenly shouted, Xiaoling, you scum. You guys are such shameless. You deal with only one kid of ours when you have that many people. Don't you feel any shame? He comes here to die himself. Don't blame us. Xiaoling grinned while his left arm turned slightly golden, performing his diamond martial spirit. His entire body had an invincible ardor that nothing could defeat. It seemed that with only his left arm, he could break all the barriers of the world. The Holy Land of the Martial Spirit Palace discovered the metal space of the 5-element space in the Divine Great Land. For Xiaoling to cultivate his diamond martial spirit to the peak, he had arduously cultivated in that metal space for 30 years. This helped his diamond martial spirit absorb more than 10 different functional metals from that metal space. His entire body could be instantly metallized, turning same as metal-class secret treasures. Diamond Spirit Martial was the sacred level martial spirit which had been spread for more than 100,000 years. Once it was activated, the user's whole body would be metallized. Not only would the body have a solid defense like diamonds, but the arms and legs would also turn into powerful weapons, which were extremely terrifying. The intimidation was also incredibly shocking. At this moment, Xiaoling only metallized his left arm. He looked at Shi Yan and rushed over, directly condensing 10 kinds of strange metal powers in his body without using any other means, and just simply launched a punch towards Shi Yan. Strange metal lights burst out. His metallized arm suddenly became like a shining golden sword, directly stabbing on Shi Yan's chest with a loud bang. Shi Yan crazily rushed forward as metal collision sounds came up from his chest. While dashing forward, he was held back a little bit by this blow, halting in the midst of the strange void. 10 kinds of strange metal powers pierced through his chest through this punch. The mysterious power in front of his chest immediately gathered and turned into countless fine beams of energy lights, wrapping around those 10 kinds of metal power and preventing them from harming his body. Safe and sound, he was stagnant in the air for a while, and then suddenly let out a roar. A bunch of bloody red lights shot out from his eyes. The 2 beams of blood light, which were full of brutal, horrible, and negative feelings, instantly dashed toward Xiaoling, piercing through Xiaoling's neck and quickly penetrating his body. Damn! Freak! Xiaoling cursed. His body immediately turned into a gold hue. Gold and silver lights were both radiated from his body skin and quickly covered his entire body. In a split second, a strange metal power in Xiaoling's blood came out from his body and then covered his whole body, making him turn into a metal prodigy. Shi Yan's surging spirit went inside Xiaoling's body through his neck and then ran all the way along his nerves to his head. Xiaoling sneered coldly. His eyes turned gold and silver respectively, and so did his cheeks. That made his body look very strange, which gave people a feeling of watching something inhuman. The negative madness which flowed inside Xiaoling's body was blocked by the strange metal power, and thus it couldn't penetrate his head. That kid has some tricks indeed. No wonder why even Tuku died in his hands. But don't think that killing Tuku also means you can kill me as well. Xiaoling grinned and said, Tuku isn't my opponent. Once I'm metallized, among the warriors who have the same realm as me, who can break my body? Xiaoling was extremely arrogant and simply didn't lay his eyes on Shi Yan. When the other 6 warriors of the Martial Spirit Palace saw Shi Yan unable to harm Xiaoling, they were not in a hurry but scattered to stop the other warriors who were following Shi Yan. Those warriors who were affected by Shi Yan's surging spirit were all at the first sky of Skyrealm. They all had red eyes and seemed to be enslaved by Yin. As soon as they saw him fight with someone else, they immediately rushed up and didn't even care about their lives. As the 6 martial spirit palace's warriors saw that those warriors were only at the first sky of Sky Realm, they looked even more relaxed, laughed, and firmly launched their strikes. All kinds of rare martial spirits were cast out from their bodies. Either it was the soul fluctuations, or an earthy figure, or a watery corporeal body. These martial spirit palace's warriors had the understanding of martial spirits which was much more profound than a majority of other warriors. When they activated their martial spirits, they seemed to turn into another state, halting the warriors who were affected by the impact of Yan's negative emotions. "You deal with this guy. I'll go help that stinky kid," Zhao Feng told Li Yu with a solemn face. "This kid is exceptional. If we introduce him to the God sect, they will definitely reward us. As what I've seen, this kid is not just a thing in a small pond. If we help him now, he will bring us unimaginable benefits." Li Yu's eyes brightened, as she understood immediately. She nodded and said, "Don't worry. I will handle this guy, and then come over to help you." The Divine Radiant cult had a rigorous reward doctrine. If someone introduced a talented person to the sect, the recommender's position would be promoted. Seeing Yin kill Tu Ku even though he was only at the 3rd sky of Nirvana realm, Zhao Feng now treated him as the most potentially powerful warrior of the God sect in the future. Although Zhao Feng seemed to be generous, he was actually tendentious. He knew that if he could make Yin join the God sect and become their most brilliant star, he would also be promoted accordingly, having more rights and wealth. Through Yin, perhaps he could learn some mysterious inherited techniques of the God sect and thus enter the spirit realm. Therefore, as soon as Ling wanted to destroy Yin, he immediately felt anxious. He didn't care about himself almost defeating his current opponents to rush over to Yin. "Hai, deal with Zhao Feng." Seeing Zhao Feng coming over, Ling revealed a cold smile and spoke to his fellow. Hai nodded, indicating that he understood. He then turned into a blurry silhouette, which was actually a meandering figure, dashing towards Zhao Feng. Hai had already blocked Zhao Feng even before the latter could come close to Yin. As both were at the 3rd sky of Sky Realm, Zhao Feng didn't dare to be careless, and quickly refined his power to deal with Hai. Chapter 404. Hit to deform it. Chapter 404. Hit to deform it. "Kid, you're indeed powerful. You will definitely become a brilliant talent of the Divine Radiant cult." Ling grinned. "This is certainly not what I want to see. Killing you is to weaken the future power of the Divine Radiant cult. I will not let you grow." Ling's entire body had been metallized, dashing towards Yin while launching an all-conquering metal intent domain to strike him. Yin didn't seem to know that Ling had been metallized. His whole body's muscles were convulsing, but he still started to fight back. Since both of them didn't use any secret techniques or any secret treasures, they looked like 2 barbarians fighting each other. When the mutated petrifaction martial spirit collided with Ling's diamond martial spirit, it was like stone against stone. It was unexpected that the petrifaction martial spirit did not have the lower hand. Dang dang dang. The ear-splitting metal sounds resounded from the bodies of the 2 of them. When Ling engaged in close combat, his metallized body, which should supposedly be not at all inferior, got hit unexpectedly under Yan's bombardment and produced chinking sounds. This kind of violent energy impacted his body and agitated his blood and flesh, making his body that was made from dozens of different kinds of strange metals became unbearable. In the battle, although Ling's body was unharmed, it was severely shocking that the 7 holes on his face were bleeding. His face looked even more ferocious. On the contrary, under the bedevilment state, Yin didn't seem to be facing anything unusual. His face didn't have any blood stain, as if he wasn't suffering from tiredness or pain. He instinctively used his fists to contend with Ling's attack and his metallized body. In the bedevilment state, Yin had a lust for endless destruction. This lust unlimitedly expanded, making him insane and become someone who only knew killing and destroying instinctively. This was another kind of completely giving vent. Xiao Ling's head-on attack just gave Shi Yin a goal to give vent to. With the crazy bombardment, Shi Yin kept releasing his desire for destruction, which seemed like he had just entered a mysterious intent domain. While Shi Yin was fighting with Xiao Ling, 720 acupuncture points in his body continued to purify the negative energy and transform it into a kind of strange power that was useful for his body. It was unknown how long this fight went for, but the negative energy that was running in his acupuncture points finally started being washed away. A lump of mysterious power leaked out, and in just a short time, Shi Yin became conscious for a moment while his eyes glinted with a divine light from his moment of enlightenment. Mysterious force flowed all over his body, and together with the profound qi, it crashed into the blood vein ring. A barrier inside the blood vein ring was broken, and a memory directly flew out from the blood vein ring, drilling into his head. In an instant, in this mysterious realm, his whole body trembled, his mind sublimated, his sea of consciousness churned up, and a flow of soul consciousness suddenly grew up. The size of his sea of consciousness expanded 3 times in such a short moment. The transformation of his sea of consciousness was a sign of his realm breakthrough, which was inexplicable. Shi Yin had directly entered the first sky of Sky Realm, and the ancient profound qi tree inside the profound qi's halo was doubled. An instinctive insight suddenly shone into his heart. Shi Yin went insane again. The blood of his whole body quickly condensed together with the negative energy. His body, which had originally expanded because of the mutated petrifaction martial spirit, now shriveled. His formerly purple body turned into a horrible blood red. Many drops of bright red blood blended with the negative forces unexpectedly dripped out through his pores. However, they didn't fall but covered his body instead. It looked like a blood cocoon. From afar, Shi Yin looked like he was being covered fully with blood. The blood scent gave people a wicked feeling. Xiao Ling's face changed suddenly. Anyone who saw the fight between Xiao Ling and Shi Yin would realize that the changes in Shi Yin's body were faster. Anyone who was his target ended up with a miserable fate. This was proved by the deaths of Tu Ku and Xiao Ling. No one dared to make any move. Zhuoshi struggled a little bit as she wanted to see the situation. However, Zhuoshi dragged her back tightly, not allowing her to come close to Shi Yin. Kai Yi, who had killed a first Sky of Nirvana realm warrior, was also staring at him while wearing a complicated countenance. Forget it. Kai Yi had been ready to find a chance to kill this malicious Shi Yin. However, after this incident, she decided to give up this stupid thought and forget what had happened to her at the bottom of the lake before. Shi Yin, this young man is too strong. He seems to be even more terrible than our bloodline. Lao Luan was startled and then spoke to Lao Li. Lao Li nodded with a grave face. He has helped us a lot. Without him, we should have died several times. Although there is no real friendship in this dark magnetic noxious mist, we should still treat him honestly and pay back his favor. This is the most basic moral standing. When other people help us, we must bear it in mind. I understand. Ha ha ha, good boy. I'm not wrong taking you with me. Zhao Feng burst into laughter, not caring about Xiao Hai crazily screaming over there, and then shouted to Shi Yin, wait until the trip in the dark magnetic noxious mist ends. I will definitely report to our predecessors, telling them that there is a seed of our god's sect in the endless sea. The divine radiant cult's disciples were agitated and revealed a trace of joy. Shi Yin's body slightly shocked. After giving vent, it seemed that he had gradually restored his mind. The trace of daze in his eyes also diluted a little bit. Half a day later, Shi Yin suddenly turned his head around. His 2 eyes had already been restored to their normal state. The evil and ruthless aura also vanished into thin air. Where's that bitch Aya? He looked at Kai Yi and asked. Under his scrutinizing look, she gently shook her head and said, after I came here, I don't know where she headed to. If I find that bitch, I will teach her a lesson, Lao Luan said with a cold voice. Shi Yin. Zhuoshi finally cried out in joy. Are you all right? Are you really awake? Do you know who I am? She waved her arm hard and showed a cheerful face with an excited look. Shi Yin grinned and nodded to her. It's good that you guys are okay. I was afraid that I would harm you. Even I myself cannot control that state earlier. Don't worry. We are all fine. Swasu embarrassedly smiled, wiped off his sweat, and secretly let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 405, Sky Realm. Chapter 405, Sky Realm. Kid, you seem to have had a breakthrough, right? Zhao Feng came near Shi Yin, looked at him seriously and cried out, "Have you entered the Sky Realm?" Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and the others were all startled. They looked at Shi Yin with surprised faces. Shi Yin smiled and nodded. It seemed so. While talking, he couldn't help but look at his right hand and then wear a weird face. Earlier, when the mysterious power in the acupuncture points in his body had fused with his blood, it condensed in his right palm, forming 3 drops of strange, dark red blood. The 3 drops of blood in the blood vessels of his palm transmitted a strong, surging energy fluctuation. In his palm, he realized that the 3 drops of blood were like rubies, crystal clear and very beautiful. The skin and flesh of his palm didn't seem to be able to cover the dazzling light radiating from these 3 drops of blood. The immortal blood. Shi Yin secretly shouted while his face was full of surprise and joy. He had long heard from the Yang family that they had the immortal martial spirit. Under some specific circumstances, they could condensate the immortal blood, which had exceedingly marvelous effects. That year, Yang Tian Emperor had also borrowed immortal blood to know that Shi Yin was still alive and had some connection with the ice-cold flame. According to the Yang family, this immortal blood was magically useful. He only knew that the immortal blood could help them achieve many complicated purposes. 3 drops of blood in his palm had violent power fluctuations. They were totally different from the blood in his body. The power of these 3 blood drops even contained his mental fluctuations, as if his soul was lodged in these 3 drops of blood, giving him a feeling that these 3 drops had an incredible vitality. He didn't know the magical effect of the immortal blood, or how to use them. However, these 3 drops of blood were formed nevertheless, which made him extremely happy. He had fallen into the bedevilment state, and he didn't know how he had entered the Sky Realm or condensed these 3 drops of immortal blood. The trip to the dark magnetic noxious mist could be described as an abundant harvest. Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and the others had dropped their jaws with horrified eyes. Especially Kai Yi and the 2 brothers, they and Shi Yin were on the same team in the dark magnetic noxious mist. They still remembered the first time they had met Shi Yin, when he was only at the 2nd sky of Nirvana Realm. After only a few months, from the 2nd sky of Nirvana Realm, he had broken through the 3rd sky of Nirvana Realm and now entered the Sky Realm. Such an incredible cultivation progress. If they hadn't witnessed how Shi Yin had broken through the realm step by step with their own eyes, Kai Yi, Lao Li, and the others wouldn't have believed that anyone could have had such a continuous breakthrough like him. Ha ha ha, powerful. This kid really knows how to surprise others. Not only could he kill Tu Ku and Xiao Ling, but he could also break through the Sky Realm. His future is limitless. Zhao Feng was very excited. In his eyes, the more powerful Shi Yin was, the nobler his status in the divine radiant cult would be. Thus, introducing Shi Yin to the God sect could bring him so many benefits. Shi Yin took off the storage ring from Xiao Ling holding the storage ring in his hand. Shi Yin coldly looked at Xiao Hai, who was standing not far from there and said, "Still not convinced?" Xiao Hai and other 3 martial spirit palace's warriors now amounted to the side looking at Shi Yin with hatred but not daring to take any actions. Hearing Shi Yin's provocations, Xiao Hai tried to press down his anger and suddenly walked over to the remaining warriors of the Pure Land. Seeing Xiao Hai and his fellows coming, those warriors immediately reacted. The 3rd sky of Sky Realm warrior among them whispered, "We have to unite to be able to resist the people of the divine radiant cult." Xiao Hai nodded and stood together with the Pure Land's warriors, still not daring to take any actions. At this time, the strongest side here was undoubtedly the group of Shi Yin and Zhao Feng of the divine radiant cult. After their unison, they had overwhelming advantages. Even if the martial spirit palace and the Pure Land united, they could not be better than Zhao Feng's group. Of course, there were not only the martial spirit palaces and the Pure Land's warriors in Xiao Hai's group. Around 10 other warriors, who were at the second sky and the first sky of Sky Realm, also gathered with Xiao Hai's group, as they seemed to know the current subtle situation. The situation in the field was now obvious. Zhao Feng, Shi Yin, and their fellows were in the same group. The rest were together in another group. They all cautiously looked at Shi Yin, Zhao Feng, and the others, as they were afraid that the people of Zhao Feng's group would suddenly launch a fatal blow. "Do you want to kill them?" Kai asked. Qi Xiao didn't say anything and looked at Shi Yin. Shi Yin was stunned for a moment. He looked at the remaining teams that were now united, and after looking at Zhao Feng and Li Yu, he suddenly spoke up with a smile. "We are evenly matched. If we desperately fight with each other, no one can gain any benefits." Zhao Feng nodded slightly and said with a lower voice, "If we actually start a fight with them, although we will not have a significant loss, the damage is still inevitable. Right now, everyone sees us as a threat, so continuing to fight with them is not necessary. The dark magnetic noxious mist still has one exotic land. A lot of warriors should be gathering there. If we consume too much strength and encounter other stronger warriors there, we will suffer a great loss." Li Yu frowned and said. "Okay." Shi Yin looked at Xiao Hai's group and said with a darkened face, "So, we will continue to kill ancient corpses to harvest more secret treasures." "We should do that." Zhao Feng smiled and said, "I don't think those people dare to provoke us. So, we can rest assured while killing the ancient corpses to find secret treasures." Ancient corpses floated around in the air as they seemed to be affected by a particular force, which prevented them from leaving the place. These ancient corpses had a formation technique on their bodies. If warriors didn't take the initiative to attack them, the corpses would not proactively attack. Only when these corpses realized that they were threatened would they fully resist. The power of the ancient corpses came from the secret treasures on their chest. The strength of 11 ancient corpses was equivalent to a standard Sky Realm warrior, so their threat was not that big. After discussing what to do, everyone began to act. Zhao Feng, Li Yu, and the other people of the Divine Radiant cult started to choose their own ancient corpses to kill. Qi Xiao, Kai, and the other warriors also focused on the surrounding floating corpses. Shi Yin was not in a hurry to take action. On the contrary, he forcefully broke Xiaoling's storage ring and explored it carefully. Xiaoling's storage ring was divided into 3 small spaces. One space had a stack of various types of cultivating materials and many refining mineral stones. The other one was to store daily necessities and food, while the remaining space kept the crystal stones and bottles, as well as some secret treasures. The fork and knife-shaped secret treasure, which Xiaoling had collected recently, was releasing a blue halo. One would feel a bone-deep chill on touching it, as there was a terrifying icy power emitting from the secret treasure. When Shi Yin touched it, his fingers also felt a little cold. If it weren't for the ice-cold flame to have tempered his body, perhaps his fingers would have been frozen already. This secret treasure had the ice attribute. Shi Yin secretly nodded and put that treasure back into his storage ring. He also put on Xiaoling's storage ring, as it was such a waste if he didn't take those that were given for free. When Xiao Hai watched Shi Yin put Xiaoling's storage ring on his finger, his eyes flooded with hatred. However, he still didn't dare to rush over. Shi Yin didn't care about him either, just threw a quick look at him and sneered. The flame of hatred was getting stronger in Xiao Hai's eyes. He revealed a pernicious face and kept breathing heavily. He seemed to be reminding himself not to act rashly. At this time, the disciples of the Divine Radiant cult were staring at an ancient corpse. It had a green armor on its chest, which seemed to shrink inside the formation, and thus was not very clear. The armor emitted a shining green light like a piece of jade. Zhao Feng, Li Yu, and the others surrounded that ancient corpse, not letting it out of their sight. That green armor would definitely fall into the hands of Zhao Feng's group. He looked at Kai Yi and Qi Xiao. They were also staring at another ancient corpse. A silver dagger was inlaid on its chest. It released silver light, which seemed to be the power source of this ancient corpse. The corpse didn't have a life, but under their attack, it discharged many waves of sharp silver light. The silver light was extremely keen. Even Qi Xiao didn't dare to touch it. While dealing with this ancient corpse, He always tried to avoid it as he was afraid that the silver light on that corpse would hit his body. Zhuasu and Zhuashi didn't even move. They just stood beside him, surprisingly watching Qi Xiao and the others kill that ancient corpse. Looking at Zhao Feng's group and then Qi Xiao and the others, Shi Yin knew that if it continued like this, they would certainly kill the ancient corpses and take the secret treasures. Shi Yin raised his head to look at the floating corpses, and then looked around to choose one ancient corpse for himself. Through hunting and killing these ancient corpses, he could collect some secret treasures. At this time, a throbbing beam of the soul in his sea of consciousness churned up. His eyes flashed up. He immediately held his breath and meditated to perceive this soul throbbing. It was the ice-cold flame's call. The ice-cold flame went to the Black Turtle Mountain range in the north, and then suddenly used his spirit to call him to come without any known reason. Over many years, he still maintained the spiritual communication with the ice-cold flame. Thus, he had soon formed a marvelous connection with it. In a certain range, he could feel the ice-cold flame's aura and be aware of the spiritual consciousness that the ice-cold flame released. Although he didn't know why the ice-cold flame had called him, he knew that the ice-cold flame would not harm him. The thing was that all the corpses at the bottom of the bridge had been destroyed while the entire ancient city was flooded with 4 kinds of disasters. Going to the ice-cold flame's location now would make him encounter the threat of those 4 disasters, which made Shi Yin a little bit cautious. But the ice-cold flame was calling urgently. Shi Yin's face changed slightly. He carefully considered for a moment and then decided to take the risk. Although the 4 disasters were terrible, he had just reached the sky realm. His body was sturdy, and he also had the 3rd sky of Rampage. All of these made his confidence skyrocket. You guys stay here. I will go down to check. After informing Zhuasu and Zhuashi, he immediately flew down to the bottom of the bridge and disappeared, not even waiting for the other 2 to utter a word. It was not easy to gather star power, let alone absorb the starlight. He had to gather this star power little by little every time. Unlike the profound qi, which could also be restored through absorbing heaven and earth aura or crystal stones. Once the star power was drained out, even if he had many fanciful tricks, he would hardly be able to use them, which would weaken his strength. After ages of absorbing the heaven and earth's cold aura, it was the coldest thing and the most mysterious living being in the world. It was different from the earth flame. As for the earth flame, the time it had become a heavenly flame was too short. So, in the comparison to the ice-cold flame, even if it could absorb the sun-refined spirit, the earth flame was still far behind the former. At this time, the ice-cold flame had been releasing its real power. With Shi Yin as the center, the cold air spread out and began to freeze everything. The frost power coming from the mountain from the north also seemed to be controlled by the ice-cold flame. A flow of frost power started to become a terrifying one among the 4 kinds of disaster. Under the growth of the ice-cold flame's energy, the frost power also burst out more heavily. The beasts that were accidentally hit by this cold air would be frozen immediately. However, Shi Yin was different. There was an icy power of the ice-cold flame in his body. His bones and tendons had soon been tempered by the ice-cold flame, which allowed him to adapt to the icy power here. Furthermore, the ice-cold flame was very careful to not spread the icy power all over his body. Therefore, although he was frozen, under his body's surging force, he could still move comfortably. But of course, it wouldn't be as fast as normal. That direction. The ice-cold flame communicated with Shi Yin, pointing forward. Shi Yin didn't say any word and urged his power to move towards that direction, dragging along a thick ice rock. Along the way, the ice-cold flame continued to release the cold air which tightly attached to the icy power of the ice rock to reduce the impact of the 4 kinds of disaster to the minimum. Hence, Shi Yin's body wasn't being affected much by those kinds of disaster. The cold air spread out wherever Shi Yin passed by. Although the beasts wanted to attack him, they couldn't bear the invasion of the icy power and thus had to retreat immediately. Without the gravitational field, but with the use of the mysterious icy power of the ice-cold flame, Shi Yin was still unharmed in the middle of those beasts. Moving towards the direction that the ice-cold flame indicated, Shi Yin went all the way back to the collapsed ancient city. Inside an old temple in the southwest of the city, he saw the dead body of a huge beast. That beast had only one eye. Inside the eyes, lights interweaved, and the four kinds of disasters were condensing and accumulating, vaguely forming a mysterious heavenly gate that led to another mysterious place. Chapter 407, Blacksmith, Secret of Success. Chapter 407, Blacksmith, Secret of Success. The energy fluctuations are very violent there. Except for the four kinds of terrifying disasters, there are also 3 layers of barriers. Even I could not break inside. The ice-cold flame sent a message to Shi Yin. Standing under the enormous beast, Shi Yin frowned and quietly observed the beast's massive pupil. After sensing for a while, he realized that the energy fluctuations there were intimidating. Without using the external force, he didn't believe he could enter that heaven gate. Isn't it true that you have a secret treasure that could break all kinds of barriers? The ice-cold flame communicated with him again. Maybe you can use that secret treasure to enter the heaven gate to find out the secrets in there? Shi Yin was startled and then beamed a smile. He took out the sky-breaking shuttle, pouring his divine sense into it to connect with the soul inside. Can I enter that heaven gate? The sky-breaking shuttle suddenly emitted an intense light. The edge of the sky-breaking shuttle faintly pointed to the heaven gate, shooting out a ray of fine silver light, shining on the heaven gate. Half a day later, a response was sent to him. You can go inside, but I need half of your profound chi to break the barrier. Shi Yin thought for a while and slightly nodded. Okay, I will pour the profound chi into you. Get through the channel. I want to go in there. After talking, Shi Yin poured the profound chi from his body into the sky-breaking shuttle. Under the massive profound chi infusion, the sky-breaking shuttle suddenly discharged bright silver light hitting that heaven gate. Bang! A shocking quiver came from the heaven gate as a bunch of bright silver lights emerged from there. Shi Yin didn't think too much, immediately turned into a bunch of stars which followed along that bright silver light to directly penetrate the heaven gate and disappeared instantly. In a vast expanse of space, there was only a decayed mummy. This mummy wore a blue gown, and it was sitting cross-legged. His left hand held a very thick, old book and seemed like it was carefully reading the contents of the book. It should be a God Realm warrior who had condensed his great power to build this strange space. In this space, Shi Yin immediately remembered the space that he had entered before, which had been created by the star god Ouyangji. The scene here was not as bright as that space, but very similar. This space here should also be built by a God Realm warrior. This one was not the same type of heaven gate that had been created over so many years like the Chasm battlefield. Instead, it had been created by a God Realm warrior out of sheer boredom. This heaven gate didn't seem to be too mysterious nor dangerous. The territory area was also limited. Standing in this strange space, Shi Yin looked around and saw only misty white fog all over the place. He couldn't see farther anyway. Hesitating for a while, he didn't rush to check that mummy yet. Instead, he walked around but got nothing. In this spacious area, there was nothing else except this mummy. All the mysteries were perhaps in that ancient corpse. Shi Yin slowly walked to the mummy while the rest of his profound chi was quietly gathering. The star shield and the dark shield then spread out together to guard against any dangers that might bounce up from that ancient mummy. Beyond his expectation, even after he came close to that corpse, he didn't encounter any dangers nor felt any barriers. When he was close to the corpse, he could see 4 words on the old book that the ancient corpse was holding in his hand: Blacksmith's Secrets of Success. What? Shi Yin's heart slightly bounced while his eyes were brightening. Is this the secluded place of the ancient blacksmith? Lingering here for quite a long time, through his subtle observation, he knew that this place should be the gathering place of blacksmiths. There were many furnaces, forging materials, which were no longer useful, and also some secret treasures that had been refined. Apparently, there existed many powerful blacksmiths in this strange space. Although Shi Yin didn't know why all of them had disappeared, he could be sure that everything here was related to blacksmiths. In the ancient time, blacksmiths and alchemists were both crucial parts of the warrior's world. Whether it was in ancient times or modern times, blacksmiths and alchemists both enjoyed a distinguished position. Every blacksmith or alchemist was an extraordinary warrior. Secret treasures refined by blacksmiths and pellets refined by alchemists were the important factors in enhancing warriors' strength. If a warrior held a powerful weapon as well as all kinds of pellets, then whether in practice or battle, he would surely have the upper hand over one who didn't possess these items. A blacksmith with a profound realm could create sacred-level secret treasures. Such a blacksmith would have the respect from all other warriors. The reason that the Spirit Treasure sect could dominate the Divine Great Land for so many years was thanks to having many blacksmiths and alchemists. If it didn't have a big number of blacksmiths and alchemists with high levels like that, perhaps it might not be able to become one of the 7 ancient factions of the Divine Great Land. In short, blacksmiths in this world were absolutely precious, and they received respect from all warriors. The more powerful a blacksmith was, the better privilege he could have. Although this blacksmith had been weathered for so many years, he still maintained his reading posture. Sure Yin didn't know at which level this blacksmith was, but if he could build the Heaven Gate, he was at least a God Realm warrior. A blacksmith would consider being a powerful blacksmith as their important pursuit. Levels were only a necessary condition to fulfill in their pursuit. In general, a blacksmith with God Realm cultivation base might also be a sacred-level blacksmith and could refine sacred-level secret treasures. A sacred-level blacksmith. Sure Yin line of sight moved while his eyes brightened. In the entire Divine Great Land, God-level blacksmiths seemed to have disappeared a long time ago. The most powerful blacksmith now was only at the sacred level, who could refine sacred-level secret treasures. Even the Spirit Treasure sect only had 2 sacred-level blacksmiths, who were the most powerful protectors for the Spirit Treasure sect's domination in the Divine Great Land. Sure Yan's eyes brightened. He stared at the old book, Blacksmith's Secrets of Success, in the mummy's hands. His heart pounded fast as he couldn't stop the desire to possess that book. He didn't know if it were dangerous. Sure Yin stretched his hands out to catch the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success. His skin turned to purple while many spots of starlight were twinkling on the back of his hand. He was very cautious. When one of his fingers touched that Blacksmith's Secrets of Success, a brutal surging spirit suddenly burst out from the old book. Instantly, Sure Yan's sea of consciousness swayed. His spirit seemed to be locked by a mysterious soul barrier. He couldn't even think. Truly powerful, Sure Yin reacted decisively, retrieving his hands, holding his breath, and reinforcing his mind. As soon as his fingers left the Blacksmith's Secrets of Success, the surging spirit also disappeared. It seemed that as long as he didn't touch the old book, there would be no spiritual fluctuations released. However, with a slight touch, those surging spiritual beams would lock his mind and directly imprison his spirit. With a cold face, Sure Yin didn't dare to retake the actions. He carefully looked at the old book and didn't find anything unusual. After Sure Yin pulled his finger back, there was no spiritual sense. He knew that the terrifying spiritual surging was definitely from the old book. Maybe it came from its pages. Every page might also have a strong spiritual fluctuation. As long as he touched it, he would suffer from the impact of that energy. Although he had reached the sky realm, he didn't know what to do with these horrifying spiritual fluctuations. He had a deep understanding of various types of Upanishads, and his perception of souls was much more profound than that of a typical warrior. So, if even he couldn't resist this kind of terrible spiritual surging now, he believed that other sky realm warriors would absolutely find it difficult to feel safe under the impact of those fluctuations. No matter what, he needed to take the book first. This old book was definitely a precious treasure of the blacksmiths. Sure Yan's eyes changed a little bit. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. No matter how evil this book was, he had to keep it in his storage ring, and then he could slowly explore its secrets later. He reached out again. This time, he pointed the storage ring towards the old book and then waited until it touched that old book. Then, he quickly triggered his mind. A flow of light flashed. That old book disappeared and stayed inside his storage ring. As long as his fingers didn't touch the book, the violent spiritual fluctuations would not burst out. His mind sensed it a little bit, and then he realized that the old book was retrieved by the storage ring indeed. He then let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the ancient corpse and wanted to see how abnormal that book was. Boom! A loud noise suddenly came up from that ancient corpse. It then turned into a strange plume of smoke and disappeared into thin air in this strange space. The old book and this weathered ancient corpse seemed to have a close connection. Since the book disappeared from the corpse's hand, it seemed not to feel the need to exist anymore, and then disappeared just like that. Not only that, when the ancient corpse turned into ashes, this space also began to crack, as some splits appeared. Shi Yan's face changed. He didn't overthink and immediately communicated with the ice-cold flame. A bunch of silver lights flashed up, and Shi Yan quickly drilled into it. That bunch of light brought Shi Yan flying outside, following the channel that the sky-breaking shuttle had broken through earlier. In the cold space, Shi Yan turned into a column of starlight and returned to the ancient city from that strange space. Chapter 408. Restore the original shape. Chapter 408. Restore the original shape. The space was destroyed. All four kinds of disaster in the ancient city seemed to be attracted by that heaven gate, as they crazily rushed into the gate which was about to break in pieces. Shi Yan stood below, looking at the disasters blowing into the heaven gate, and then watching the space rifts in the sky. His face looked shocked. The heaven and earth had a mutation. The sky revealed a beam of dazzling light in which space's chaotic movements could be seen. In the burst of violent roars, that heaven gate bulged, finally turning into a small spot of light and disappearing above the ancient city. The ancient city suddenly restored its quietness. Even the beasts that had been gathering also seemed to know that there was no more meaning to continue to guard, and so they all left the ancient city. The four surrounding mountains collapsed in an instant and razed to the ground. The weaving galaxies in the sky slowly faded like a river drying out, and thus it also quickly lost its previous mysterious look. A graceful figure had a glimpse down from the sky and then turned into a beam of light, flying away. Shi Yan frowned, stared at that beautiful figure for a moment while he was wearing a grave look. Although he was far apart, he could still recognize that figure was Aya, who had earlier gone missing. He didn't know why this woman was in the sky or what had happened to her. Her leaving made Shi Yan feel that this ancient city had nothing else to be attached to. Sure enough, at the weaving point, many warriors also began to fly away, not continuing to linger in the ancient city for any longer. These people seemed to know that the ancient city no longer had secret treasures, and thus, they would harvest nothing if they continued to stay. The book Blacksmith's Secrets of Success in the Ancient Mummy's Hand seemed to be the reason of this ancient city's existence. Since Shi Yan took the book, all of the strange treasures of this place also disappeared, which meant that this ancient city had no more mysteries left. The beast's bones also exploded into pieces in the heaven gate, scattering in every corner of the ancient city. Several figures in the sky seemed to look at Shi Yan, who was standing below, and thus they slowly descended near him. Shi Yan frowned and looked at the sky, realizing that they were Zhao Feng, Qi Xiao, and the others. Shi Yan let out a sigh of relief and put down his guard. While jumping into the heaven gate, he had consumed much of his spirit. Therefore, his current state was not very good. If the warriors in the sky considered him as their target to kill, he would be in danger given his situation at the moment. Zhao Feng and the others slowly landed. "Kid, why did you come here?" Zhao Feng shouted with an astonished face. "Kid, what the hell are you doing here? Why has this strange place restored its normal state? Even the galaxy and the ancient corpses in the sky also disappeared. What did you do?" Liu, Qi Xiao, and the others also looked at him with puzzled faces. When they were still fighting with the ancient corpses in the sky, they realized that the ancient city had a big change. The ancient corpses went into the space rifts one by one without leaving a trace. After observing everything around, they realized that the ancient city's mutation seemed to be related to Shi Yan's deeds. They were all astonished and immediately came down here. The warriors from other forces saw the change of this ancient city. They knew that it was no longer necessary for them to continue staying here, and thus, they all left and went to another exotic land. I don't know what happened. Shurien shook his head, not wanting to tell them about what really happened to him. The Blacksmith's Secrets of Success of the Blacksmith, there might be the most precious treasure in the ancient city. Although he didn't know how valuable this book was, since this Blacksmith's Secrets of Success was kept in his storage ring, the ancient city immediately had such a big change like this. Thus, he could already know how crucial it was. In the Grace mainland, blacksmiths were extremely rare. And so, this secret treasure was even more precious. If people knew that he had taken this Blacksmith's Secrets of Success, perhaps he would encounter a lot of troubles and might arouse some high-class blacksmiths of the Grace mainland, who still maintained a good relationship with God Realm warriors. If those blacksmiths knew that he had this precious refining method, they would come and find him at any cost and would deprive this Blacksmith's Secrets of Success from him. After spending a long time in the Grace mainland, he had realized the cruelty of this world. He knew that as long as he had a powerful strength, he could do whatever he wanted in this world. No legal morality could control him. You didn't find anything unusual? Zhao Feng asked while his eyes flashed a trace of surprise. He seemed to be very curious as he always felt that this ancient city's mutation certainly had something to do with Shurien. Kai was also puzzled. Her beautiful eyes glinted with a beam of strange light. She hesitated a bit before speaking softly. I always have a feeling that we have all been too focused on fighting above, but the things we got there are far less than the harvest here. Although I don't know what you got, since this strange land suddenly lost all of its mysteries, it is certain that the most precious treasure here has been taken. Zhao Feng's and Li Yu's eyes brightened as they both felt that Kai was right. They looked at Shurien with complicated faces. Kid, tell us. We are really curious. Zhao Feng grinned. Curiosity can get people killed. I know that, but I still want to know what you have harvested after all. I want to know what the most precious treasure in this exotic land is. Shurien still shook his head while his face remained cold. Nothing? Everyone knew that Shurien didn't want to say about it. Zhao Feng and Li Yu looked at him for a long while. As seeing his determined attitude, they then helplessly stopped asking. Both of them considered Shurien as the brightest star of the Divine Radiant cult in the future. As they still hoped to rely on Shurien to enhance their positions in the Divine Radiant cult, they obviously didn't want to offend him at this point in time. So, they didn't continue to ask him. As for Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and Zhou Su, they all had to rely on Shurien to be safe all the way on the trip. When facing Shurien, they always felt that they owed him many favors. Therefore, seeing Shurien unwilling to say anything, they naturally stopped asking. I don't think it's necessary for us to continue staying here any longer. Shurien smiled and looked up at the sky. Should we leave this place? I just saw Aya, Kai said with a dark face. That bitch has had her calculations against us all the way. At the critical point of time, she wanted us dead to get more precious treasures. If I have a chance, I'll give her a lesson for sure. The two brothers flashed a hateful look as they also resented Aya. She's the first one who left this place. If I am right, she will go to another exotic place. Perhaps, we will have the opportunity to see her again. Shurien nodded and said with a cold voice, This woman has a wicked heart. She has never considered us her companions. If I have a chance, I'll handle her. If so, then let's go together. Zhao Feng burst into laughter. Kid, I still want to ask you many things. I think that you also need to know more about the Divine Radiant cult. Our Divine Radiant cult in the Divine Great Land dominates the entire area, and we are the oldest sect in the Divine Great Land. You are so outstanding, and if you go to the Divine Great Land, the Divine Radiant cult will obviously invite you to our sect's holy land. The Divine Radiant cult? Shurien was agitated at heart while his face changed slightly. According to Zhao Feng, the Divine Radiant cult was the place that could protect him as they highly respected young outstanding warriors. Moreover, it was one of the most powerful ancient factions in the Divine Great Land. This sect had secret methods which were related to various types of mysterious martial arts, along with different techniques to use martial arts. This sect's secret methods were way more improved than those of the other three divine sects. If he had the opportunity to come to the divine Great Land, he could use the divine radiant cult's power. Therefore, it seemed that if he stayed in the divine Great Land, he would have a lot of convenience and benefits. If it was possible to use the power of divine radiant cult to enhance his cultivation base, expand his knowledge, and help him understand the Upanishads more, it was not bad at all. I think I will go to the divine Great Land, but not at the moment. Shi Yin contemplated for a while, then talked to Zhao Feng with a smile. I still have one thing to do in the endless sea. After I have done the business here in the dark magnetic noxious mist, I will go back to the endless sea. Then, once everything there is settled, I will visit the divine Great Land. There is nothing interesting there, Zhao Feng muttered, compared to the divine Great Land. Be it the level of warriors or martial techniques or martial spirits, they are all far behind than ours. Our divine Great Land is the gathering center of all warriors in the Grace mainland. We have all kinds of wonderful things that you could never believe. You can have anything you want. Shi Yin nodded. You don't need to persuade me. After I settle down the matter in the endless sea, I will certainly travel to divine Great Land. We will talk more. I will tell you about the divine radiant cult and how to find us when you go there in the future. Seeing Shi Yin determined to go to the endless sea, Zhao Feng didn't continue to talk him out of it. I can be your guide there. All right, Shi Yin nodded with a smile. Zhao Feng looked very joyful. His attitude was also friendly. At this time, a bunch of burning fires suddenly flew over from afar, aiming at Shi Yin. The fires were extremely hot, covering the entire area. Under that scorching heat, warriors beside Shi Yin all felt uncomfortable and hastily gathered their strength to resist. Zhao Feng's eyes shot out a light, staring at that earth flame, and suddenly shouted, "That is the burning power of the sun refined spirit." Li Yu's eyes lit up while she expressed a frightened look. Chapter 409. 9 Types of Heaven Flames. Chapter 409. 9 Types of Heaven Flames. Shi Yin didn't say anything, but just smiled and stretched out his hand. The blood vein ring shot out bloodlight, and the incoming earth flame disappeared into his blood vein ring. At the same time, the ice-cold flame also went into the blood vein ring. That's the burning power of the sun refined spirit. Zhao Feng's eyes reflected the hot flames, looking at Shi Yin with surprise. Kid, didn't I feel it wrong? Yes, it does have the burning power of the sun refined spirit, Shi Yin nodded. For those who use the sun power to cultivate, the power of the sun refined spirit is the most precious treasure. If I can use the sun refined spirit to cultivate, I think my martial technique will have a great breakthrough. Zhao Feng shot out a sharp look. If I can use the sun refined spirit, my comprehension will be more profound, and perhaps I will enter the spirit realm. Shi Yin slightly smiled and shook his head. It belongs to me. If possible, I want to borrow it to cultivate later. I don't need the sun-refined spirit energy. I only need to observe it a bit closer to find the traits of the power being released from the sun-refined spirit and how the fiery flame burns. Is it okay? Zhao Feng laid his eyes on Shi Yin with a begging look and a longing face. Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows, hesitated a little bit, and then said, "If only that's the deal, then no problem." Zhao Feng was overjoyed and burst into laughter. What is that bunch of burning fire after all? Li Yu couldn't help but ask. Well, just see it as a new heaven flame which comes from a 10,000-year-old volcano that was lucky enough to absorb the sun-refined spirit. Right now, I don't know how great its potential is, but if we say the heaven flames are required to have consciousness, then it should be a heaven flame, Shi Yin explained. Heaven flame? Zhao Feng, Li Yu, and even Kai looked at him with astonished faces. I have heard that there are a total of 9 heaven flames existing in this world. Adding this one would make it 10. Zhao Feng sighed. The legend about the heaven flames has been circulated in the divine Great Land, but people who have a heaven flame are extremely rare. Each type of heaven flames has its unique effect and its own mysterious force that makes people envy. You're very lucky to have it. Do you know what the 9 types are? Shi Yan's heart moved slightly while he pretended to ask. He had also heard rumors about the heaven flames. It was said that, in this world, there were a total of 9 types of heaven flames, and there were also rankings among them. However, be it in the quiet cloud or the endless sea, no one seemed to know what types these 9 heaven flames were. Zhao Feng and Li Yu came from the divine Great Land, which was the gathering center of all warriors. Warriors who knew about these 9 types of heaven flames could only come from the divine Great Land. Primal Chaos Sacred Fire, World Extinguishing Thunder Flame, 9 Serenity Soul Devouring Flame, Immemorial Demonic Flame, Purgatory True Flame, In Spirit Ghost Flame, Vermilion Bird True Flame, Ice Cold Flame, and Vanishing Corpse Flame. Zhao Feng's eyes brightened while speaking. These 9 types of heaven flame are the names we already know. The mysteries of these 9 heaven flames have been spread in our divine Great Land. However, we still don't know what magical effects these 9 heaven flames have. Perhaps, only those who possess the heaven flames can know their magical effects as well as their threats. Primal Chaos Sacred Fire, World Extinguishing Thunder Flame, 9 Serenity Soul Devouring Flame, Immemorial Demonic Flame, Purgatory True Flame, In Spirit Ghost Flame, Vermilion Bird True Flame, Ice Cold Flame, and Vanishing Corpse Flame. Shi Yan murmured while his eyes also slowly lit up. Primal Chaos Sacred Flame is ranked first, and the Vanishing Corpse's Flame is ranked last. Each type of heaven flame seems to be able to integrate with the warriors. Once warriors can fuse with the heaven flames, they are able to obtain much more than just their power. Zhao Feng looked at him enviously. Previously, the ice-cold flame had been on Shi Yan's chest. When the earth flame entered the blood vein ring, because its burning power was too strong, and also the fact that the ice-cold flame had been trying to reduce its power, other people didn't know that the icy light column was actually the ice-cold flame, one of the 9 heaven flames. If they knew the ice-cold flame and the 9 Serenity Soul-devouring flame were both here, Shi Yan wondered how surprised they would be. Shi Yan already got what he wanted to know, so he stopped asking about the heaven flames. He smiled and looked at Zhao Feng and the others. How was your harvest up there? Zhao Feng held a happy face and excitedly said, We have 4 secret treasures which are all sacred level ones. 3 of them are of the 1st grade of the sacred level, and the remaining 1 is of the 3rd grade of the sacred level. Ha ha ha, this is really a good harvest. Even in the divine Great Land, secret treasures are very rare. Only a few important people of the powerful parties can have the 3rd grade of sacred level secret treasures. Ha ha ha. Getting to the exciting part, Zhao Feng couldn't help but burst out laughing. The secret treasures that Blacksmith created were divided into 5 levels: mortal level, mystery level, profound level, sacred level, and god level. Each level was divided into 7 grades. The 1st grade was the lowest and the 7th grade was the best. As Zhao Feng got a 3rd grade sacred level secret treasure this time, no wonder he was so excited. How about you? Shi Yan looked at Qi Xiao and Kai Yi. 2 pieces of 1st grade sacred level secret treasures. Qi Xiao smiled, took out a silver dagger, raised it up and said, I have this. Although Qi Xiao looked calm, his eyes were extremely excited, since he could get the secret treasures in the dark magnetic noxious mist this time. Once his mind connected with it, his strength would be greatly improved. With this sacred level secret treasure, Qi Xiao could become the strongest member of the Fire Empire, the God-blessed Empire, and the Supreme Warrior in the Quiet Cloud. Thus, he was obviously very happy. Not bad, not bad. Shi Yan constantly nodded. Where's the other one? In my hand. Kai Yi chuckled, but didn't take out the secret treasure from her storage ring. However, she also looked very satisfied. I'm quite lucky. It was unexpected that I could harvest something in the dark magnetic noxious mist this time. Lao Li and Lao Luan both revealed a trace of envy and complained that their luck was not good, as they couldn't harvest anything. Kid, should we leave here or not? Zhao Feng realized that there was no one left in the ancient city, and thus, he was a little anxious. The others have left already, probably to go to the other exotic lands. We should also go soon. Hopefully, we can harvest the god soul. If we are too late, we will not get anything. You know the direction? Shi Yan asked in astonishment. Zhao Feng hauled out a compass which was similar to the one Aya had and raised it up. The Spirit Treasure Sect has forged this stuff. It can identify the direction of any area, so we will not be lost if we have it. That's good. Shi Yan's eyes brightened while he beamed a smile. If so, we can go now. How about you? Zhao Feng looked at Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and the others. Are you going with us? As Qi Xiao and Kai Yi got the secret treasures, their confidence had been increased significantly. Thus, they nodded readily. The two brothers hadn't harvested anything, but still hoped to be able to get something in another exotic land. Obviously, they would not give up midway. Therefore, they nodded, indicating that they would also go with them. Zhao Feng actually didn't want to be on the same team with them. However, in consideration for Shi Yan, he didn't say anything. He took out the compass to identify the direction, and then said to Shi Yan, "You guys follow us. The other exotic land is quite far from here. It will take a maximum of 2 days to get there." Good, Shi Yan nodded. Zhao Feng and Liu exchanged glances, assigning something for their warriors who kept up with them. After that, they led the way, flying out. Since the Heaven Gate had exploded, everything here restored to its normal state. Even the divine thunder which had covered outside also disappeared. Shi Yan used to worry about the divine thunder before. Anyway, his profound qi had been consumed by half, and if the divine thunder were still outside, he would have to use the power of the sky-breaking shuttle to break through. By that time, his profound qi would be drained completely, and if he encountered danger, it would be difficult for him. Although Qi Xiao and Kai Yi had a profound cultivation base, he didn't want to lay his life in someone else's hands. Therefore, he would have to spend some time first to use the demon crystals to restore his profound qi before leaving. Without the divine thunder outside, he didn't have to be that cautious. He flew up to the sky together with Qi Xiao and the others, catching up with Zhao Feng's group. Half a day later, Zhao Feng's group encountered a flock of level 6 beasts above a mountain. However, it didn't take them long to wipe those beasts out. Since the warriors in Zhao Feng's team had quite low realms, their profound qi had been consumed significantly. Zhao Feng had to stop to let them rest for a while, using the demon crystals to restore their profound qi. Shi Yan took this opportunity to haul out the demon crystals inside his storage ring and restored his profound qi together with Qi Xiao, Zhou Su, and Zhou Shi. The 3 people of Qi Zhao's group were quite poor before. With Shi Yan's support, they could now have enough demon crystals to restore their profound qi. These 3 people had drained a lot of their profound qi on the way, and were in a situation where they had no more demon crystals. However, after the fight in the ancient city, they had got some demon crystals from some dead warriors, and Shi Yan had also given them some more. Therefore, they now had enough demon crystals to use. Entering the sky realm, Shi Yan's ancient profound qi tree seemed to grow double or so. As he was restoring the profound qi, his progress speed was apparently slowed down. When he and Qi Xiao restored the profound qi, it would take quite a lot of time. Even after the warriors in Zhao Feng's team had fully restored their profound qi, Shi Yan and Qi Xiao were still using demon crystals to restore their profound qi. As Zhao Feng knew that he would rely on Shi Yan a lot in the future, he didn't urge him to hurry. Instead, together with Li Yu and the others, he waited for Shi Yan and Qi Xiao to stand up and then continued the trip, going to another strange land. Their trip was much easier as they didn't encounter any beast this time. 2 days later, they finally arrived at another exotic land. The outskirts of this exotic land had thick, gray smoke hovering. However, there was no divine thunder inside that smoke to rock Shi Yan's mind. Following Zhao Feng's team, Shi Yan, Qi Xiao, Kai Yi, and the others also descended in this strange land. Chapter 410. The Abnormal Underground. Chapter 410. The Abnormal Underground. This was a small island, with ancient green trees and blossoming flowers everywhere. The aura of heaven and earth was vibrant on this island. Different from other regions in the dark magnetic noxious mist, the periphery of this island was full of smoke hovering around, but there was none inside the island. All that people could see was towering old trees, which were incredibly dense, covering the sky. Like a paradise, this place didn't have any beasts either, making them relax and feel that cultivating here would be very comfortable. Shi Yan's team went through the fog and landed. Afterward, they quietly released their soul consciousness and then immediately realized that their soul consciousness wasn't restricted. When their soul consciousness spread out, various dynamic living activities in the island could instantly be reflected in their sea of consciousness. Nobody's here. Xiaofeng had a cultivation base of third sky of Sky Realm. He released his soul consciousness, which had soon enveloped the entire island. But there was no trace of any life. A place with dense heaven and earth aura and verdant blossoming flowers like this should not be this empty. The warriors from the divine great land were certain that there was a part of warriors who had come here to find the existence of the god soul. Those should have spread out their soul consciousness to find the abnormality on the island, as well as possible opportunities. Qi Xiao, Li Yu, and others were wearing doubtful faces. They also released their soul consciousness, but got nothing either. It's not right, Shi Yin frowned. There must be something strange here. Otherwise, some warriors should be here. If we can come here, the others certainly can too. If we can spread out our soul consciousness, the other warriors also can. So basically, when we land here, we should immediately be detected. It's impossible that no soul consciousnesses are exploring the area. Everyone should be careful. I don't think this place is normal. Perhaps it's even more dangerous than the previous exotic land. Zhao Feng's face darkened. Everyone gather in one place. Don't scatter. We are going to the center of the island together and explore it a bit. Everyone nodded and gathered. Towering trees expanded all over the island. With a quick look, this island was totally covered with dense forests. Those old trees would limit the vision of those walking in these forests, and they would not be able to see far. Shi Yan's team was slowly moving deeper into the island. They were not anxious, just paying attention to everything in the surroundings. As long as there were any signs of trouble, they would carefully observe them. Thump thump. Dull sounds resonated from under their feet. A vibration came up from deep under the ground of the island. The vibration frequency was slow, but it seemed to rush straight to the human mind. Thump thump thump. Everyone's heart gradually beat faster. The tremor from underneath the island seemed to be able to drive the heartbeat, making the hearts of those people pound faster and faster. What? Zhao Feng's eyes glinted with a bunch of strange light. Do you guys all feel it? Everyone's faces were solemn. They all nodded. Zhao Feng took a deep breath and said with a grave face, I think there exists something abnormal underground. We should be careful. If our heartbeat reaches a certain speed, we'll probably get crazy. The faster the heartbeat is, the more influence it will have on our judgment and reasoning, making us too nervous and dominating our emotions. After pausing for a while, Zhao Feng looked at Shi Yin and said, Especially you. Shi Yin was a little embarrassed as he gently nodded. Don't worry. I had reasons to have lost my mind before. I will not suddenly lose my mind again. The impact I have this time should be consistent with yours. Who has a soul consciousness that can penetrate into the subterranean ground? Liu hesitated for a while before her face slightly changed, as she seemed to realize something. My soul consciousness cannot even go 10 zhongs underground. There seem to be some barriers inside the ground of this island that prevent the soul consciousness from penetrating. After hearing what she said, everyone else immediately sent their soul consciousness into the ground to verify her words. Shi Yan's soul consciousness also suddenly dashed to the ground. However, when it reached the depth of only 5 zhongs, it encountered obstacles. With the barrier that prevented soul consciousness from penetrating underground, they seemed to have countless ropes tying their soul consciousness up. The deeper it drilled down, the stronger the pulling force was. After reluctantly spreading out to the depth of 6 zhongs, Shi Yin had released all of his soul consciousness and couldn't penetrate even a centimeter further. I can affirm that. Zhao Feng solemnly looked at everyone and said, if nothing unexpected happens, I'm sure this island's abnormality should be in the center of the earth. So, we should look for the entrance to go there. I think that if there are other warriors, and they should be in the center of the earth. If they can go down there, we also can. Well, there must be an entrance. While talking, Kai took out a sapphire bangle from her storage ring. As soon as the bangle emerged in her palm, it immediately shed 3 columns of azure light, which penetrated straight down into the ground, piercing the earth's barriers all the way downward. Kai slowly closed her eyes while tightly holding the bangle. When the 3 light columns struck straight to the ground, Kai knitted her eyebrows tightly as she seemed to sense something serious. Half a day later, her graceful body suddenly trembled. She then opened her eyes and said with surprise, "Somebody is fighting down there?" Everyone was shocked. This sapphire bangle is from an exotic land. During the past 2 days, I've sensed carefully and realized that my sapphire bangle could detect different energies. When these 3 azure light columns penetrated the earth earlier, they realized that at least 10 different kinds of energy are competing. It's obvious that there must be a variety of warriors engaging in the battle. Kai held the sapphire bangle while calmly explaining to everyone, "Those people underground should have realized something already. Otherwise, they would not have been fighting now." Zhao Feng grinned. "It seems that those people have met some sacred-level secret treasures, and they are fighting each other only because of those treasures. Our guess is right. The strange things of this island are all underground. Look for the entrance." Shi Yin cracked a smile out of the corner of his mouth, separate to seek. "It looks like there's no danger in this island. Everyone scatter and shout when you find it. Although this island is not small, if we spread out, it'll be easy to find the entrance." Scatter. Zhao Feng instructed his people from the divine radiant cult, and then flew away first towards the center of the island. Kai, Qi Xiao, the 2 brothers also spread out as per Shi Yan's order. Shi Yan didn't move yet, just standing still on his spot. 7 people from the divine radiant cult, Kai, Qi Xiao, and the 2 brothers had divided into 3 directions. With many people like this, it should not take long to search the entire island. Even if he didn't put any effort into this, he still could enjoy the result. That was why he was this leisurely. Zhusu and Zhushi were about to scatter to search for the entrance, but as they saw him stay back, they were stunned for a moment and also stood still. "Grandfather Zhua, after this thing, you should return to the Merchant Union." Shi Yin contemplated for a while and then suddenly said with a solemn face, "Don't get back to the Endless Sea. Although I am not sure how the current situation is right now, I'm certain that the Endless Sea is very chaotic. Since I left the Endless Sea, demon dwellers of the 4th demon area should have massively invaded the Endless Sea. It has been such a long time, so I think perhaps the dark dwellers and the demon dwellers have come to the Endless Sea together. If you take that way, you will obviously encounter dangers." Zhusu's face changed slightly. He said with fright, "Demon dwellers? Dark dwellers?" Shi Yin nodded. "Isn't it said that these 2 alien races have disappeared from the Grace mainland? In the Merchant Union, there are some ancient legends about the existence of these 2 races. However, we have never seen any of them. Have they actually come to the Endless Sea? They are in the Endless Sea now?" "Yes, everyone living there is in tragedy. These 2 races have killed a large number of warriors. The Kiara Sea and the Hengluo Sea are now covered with corpses. Many civilians have also been affected. It's impossible to tell everything in just a few words." Talking about the Endless Sea, Shi Yin also felt very depressed. Since he left the Endless Sea, he knew that the Great Race War would break out. Chao Qiudao of the Chao family and Yang Yitian of the Martial Spirit Palace were 2 powerful persons. If the 2 of them united, together with other forces in the Endless Sea, it would be hard to say who would win given the situation that the Demon Dwellers and the Dark Dwellers didn't come to the Endless Sea at the same time. There was one thing he was sure, that this war would not easily end soon. After the Yang family hid in the 4th demon area, there was no news from them. Although Qi Yin said that Yang Tian Emperor was dead, Shi Yin always felt that the said person could not easily die like this. Yang Tian Emperor was the most famous outstanding warrior in the Endless Sea, who was also extremely wise. He should have some support. When the Yangs were there and fighting in the Endless Sea, he had to go back. The more chaotic the area was, the easier it was for him to enhance his cultivation through the mysterious martial spirit. He had reached the Sky Realm, so he needed a lot of profound chi to make a breakthrough. Since the Endless Sea was this chaotic, this was apparently a suitable place for him to cultivate.
Linda and Xiaosheng Chuan were dead. Shi Yin was now more confident than before when he faced the Devil Emperor Qi Yin. With the emergence of Bo Sun, Di Shan, and Yu Rou had to betray him because of their race. For Shi Yin, this was a great humiliation. He came to the dark magnetic noxious mist to kill and get back what belonged to him. Chapter 411. Sentimental Selection. Chapter 411. Sentimental Selection. If that place is so dangerous, why do you still want to go back? Zhuoshi was puzzled. She gently asked, Shi Yin, you can temporarily return to the quiet cloud. I think if your family knows that you have broken through the sky realm, they will be delighted. If you go back to the Merchant Union, the Shi family and the Zhuo family will unite, and perhaps can dominate the God-blessed Empire and the Fire Empire. The quiet cloud is too small. Shi Yin shook his head. If the time comes, I will let you go to the Merchant Union so that you can find a more suitable place to cultivate. Found it. Lao Li screamed from a distance. Shi Yin was startled. He then said to Zhuoshi and Zhuoshi, let's not talk about this now. Let's go over there to see what mystery lies in the underground of this island. When Shi Yin, Zhuoshi, and Zhuoshi came, Zhao Feng, Qi Xiao, and Kai already stood in front of a dark hole. Some other warriors of the divine radiant cult quickly rushed over as well. This was not a big hole where cold aura flew out continuously. Standing in front of the cave entrance, they could sense fresh breeze blowing onto their bodies, making them feel a bone-deep chill and give them a feeling that some kind of danger was hiding inside that cave, which terrified everyone. Not long after that, Liu also arrived with the remaining disciples of the divine radiant cult, looking at the entrance of the cave. This is it. Zhao Feng cocked his head to look a bit, and then shook it. I can't see anything. Perhaps there's also something blocking the soul consciousness. While they were talking, a silhouette suddenly rushed out and shouted, Run! An arm-sized rattan like a ghost hand thrust out from the cave and trapped that man instantly. As it had wound around the man, it released a strong suction force all of a sudden. The man's blood flowed towards the rattan, and in just a short amount of time, all of his blood had completely been drained. Everyone's eyes were wide opened. That man died even before he could have exited the cave. Everyone's face was frozen. Zhuoshi and Grandpa Zhua, don't get in. Find a safe place outside and wait. Shi Yin acted decisively and told the two of them hurriedly, it's very dangerous in there. You will not be able to help with anything, but you can get us bothered. His words were rude. Zhuoshi's eyes flashed a trace of sadness as he knew his cultivation base was too low. He reluctantly nodded, held Zhuoshi's hand and said, Zhuoshi, don't go there. Shi Yan's right. We really can't help with anything. Although Zhuoshi wanted to try, she still followed her grandfather's advice. She looked at Qi Xiao and Shi Yin worriedly and said with a low tone, you should be careful. It's strange in there. If it's too dangerous, come out immediately. Don't take anything. Only if you're alive can you enjoy the benefits. If you're dead, then there is nothing left. Okay. Shi Yin smiled and nodded. I know. I will consider staying alive as the primary task. If I realize that it's something I can't handle, I will come out immediately. Can we go now? Zhao Feng was excited, rubbing his hands and said with a smile, the more dangerous the place is, the more chances that secret treasures will be there. Everyone should be careful. Don't let the rattan entangle you. Everyone nodded with solemn faces. Zhao Feng didn't say anything else, laughed out loud and jumped down first. Liu and the others from the Divine Radiant Cult didn't hesitate either. They all followed Zhao Feng, plunging down into the cave. Qi Xiao and the two brothers also followed him. You leave first. Shi Yin looked at Zhuoshi and Zhuoshi. The two of them were a little hesitant, but didn't say anything. They then left the cave and disappeared into the jungle. Only Kai Yi and Shi Yin were left. Kai didn't hurry to jump down, but looked at him with a longing face. She was wearing green clothes, her face was white, and her eyes were like they could speak. She kept looking at Shi Yin with a begging attitude. Are you anxious? Shi Yin calmly asked. After the battle in the previous exotic land, I think that you have trusted me, Kai said with a serious face. I'm different from Aya. I will not be shameless like her.
I know that you have helped us a lot all the way. I will not return evil for good, I promise. This reason is not enough, said Shi Yin with an emotionless face. It is certainly dangerous down there. As my soul has your formation technique, I can't utilize all of my power. Kai angrily stared at him. What's wrong with you? I have begged you like this. Although I did something bad in that lake, didn't you do the same? Kai's face reddened as she was shy. Shi Yin sneered and said, Yes, I also did something wrong in that place. But it was just because I saw you wanted to harm me. I was so angry that I did it. If you guys didn't do that to me, I definitely would not have done anything. Speaking of the charming scene at the bottom of that lake, he couldn't help but remember Kai's beautiful body, while his eyes also changed slightly, becoming burning. Under Shi Yan's scrutinizing eyes, Kai was very embarrassed. She fiercely stared at him and growled, Leave it then? After talking, she was about to jump down into the cave. All right, let me remove it for you, blurted Shi Yan. Kai's beautiful eyes suddenly brightened. She halted, burst into laughter, turned around to look at him and gently said, I knew it. It's not like you don't have any feelings. You're actually very nice. As long as the others have good intentions toward you, you will not harm them. Otherwise, you would not care for Zhuoshi that much. After Zhuoshi appeared, Shi Yan always cared for Zhuoshi and Zhuoshi on the way. Kai secretly observed him for a while, then realized that the care didn't come from love. It was just because they knew each other before. He didn't mind encountering dangers, and instead, always helped the two of them. After a long time of observation, Kai finally realized that Shi Yan was not cold and ruthless as she'd imagined. She was actually envious of Zhuoshi, as Shi Yan cared for her a lot. After understanding more about Shi Yan, her hatred towards Shi Yan gradually faded, and moreover, she wanted to have a good relationship with him. If I was really ruthless, you and the two brothers should already be dead. Shi Yan slightly harumphed and said, If I didn't save you and help you go to the corpse bridge, you think that you could have survived? I know you are kind. Kai smiled. She looked thrilled and fresh as her mood was good. Can you remove the formation technique for me now? Shi Yan nodded, closed his eyes and used a soul connection to enter her mind to remove the formation technique that he had left in her soul before. Kai suddenly let out a sigh of relief, grinned like flowers blossoming, which could mesmerize other people. She nodded to Shi Yan and said with a low voice, You aren't bad indeed. If I knew about it soon, I definitely would not have done it in that lake. However, you already saw my body, and I will remember it carefully. After talking, Kai moved to the cave, released a colorful band of 5-colored light, and slowly went into the cave. Shi Yan was bewildered. Quietly watching Kai's graceful body slowly diving, Shi Yan shook his head after a long while, grinned, and went into the cave. In the dark cave, Shi Yan could only see the colorful light from Kai's body. He accelerated and appeared next to her in only 3 seconds. This cave seemed to be very deep. The two of them had been plunging down for a while, but still didn't see anything. No light came up from the cave either. Shi Yan, honestly, do you like Zhuoshi? Although that girl doesn't have a high realm, she's very charming. It's normal if you like her. While flying down, Kai suddenly turned her head to look at him and asked curiously, Why does it matter to you? Shi Yan harumphed and said, You should care about yourself. Don't let the rattan here shackle you. If it happens, I'll just ignore you. You will not, Kai said with a smile. After the formation technique in her mind was removed, she seemed to have solved the knot. She seemed to no longer hate Shi Yan. Her face glowed. Although you look cold, you are not like that. I know it. Did you fall in love with me? Shi Yan pouted and coldly looked at her. Although I did touch you, I will not take responsibility. Don't think I will love you because of this. I'm very ruthless. I'm only interested in your body, not you. I don't like a woman who is too cunning. Right. Perhaps I love you already. Kai was half real, half joking, but she was not angry either. I have heard that if a man is interested in a woman's body, then loving her is not too distant a thing. Anyway, you have seen and touched my body already. Well, you can just forget that girl's was sure and be my man. If you want to flirt with me, You should consider the time and situation. Shi Yin rubbed his nose and said reluctantly, if I knew this, I would not have removed the formation technique for you. I just realized that since your mind is free from the formation technique, your brain seems to have had some problem. If you want to die, I don't care. But don't talk nonsense to me. It affects my vigilance. Such an emotionless guy. Kai glanced at him with enchanting eyes. The two of them flew down shoulder to shoulder. Her body emitted a flashing light. Shi Yin could see every change on her face, smell the fragrance from her body, and hear her sulky words. He calmed down again and felt that this subterranean trip didn't seem so terrible as he'd imagined. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.